Chapter 3106. What appeared in Zichen's hand was a longbow. The longbow looked very quaint. It was a very old object. There were many beings in the field who did not know the reason. After seeing the longbow, they were slightly startled. They all guessed that these natives had made such a big fuss just for this bow. There were also many Protoss who knew the purpose of these natives. At this moment, after seeing Zichun take out this longbow, they were very surprised. This bow was naturally transformed by Patian. Previously, in the blade domain, Zichun had awakened Patian. This was his biggest trump card and the only thing he could rely on. Seeing Zichun take out this longbow, the expressions of the rank 7s did not change much. They had already guessed that Zichun was not willing to give up just like that. The longbow turned over, and the power of the thunder body erupted. Zichun's expression instantly became cold. He lowered his waist and exerted force, yelling as he drew the bow. The energy in the surroundings began to surge. A vortex appeared from the longbow, and the spiritual power of the entire city began to converge toward the vortex. For a moment, the wind and clouds were surging. The rank 7s who did not care about Zichen's last struggle at first were all shocked after sensing the fluctuation of this aura. You want my things? Sure. I can kill one person with this arrow. Let's see who chooses to die. Zichen's expression became extremely cold. He immediately exerted force to draw the longbow. Even with the thunder body, it was still a bit strenuous. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth gathered on the longbow, turning into a feather arrow. A terrifying aura was released from the feather arrow. At this moment, everyone's expression changed greatly because of this change. After Zichun aimed the longbow at the rank 7s, all of them involuntarily stepped back. The dangerous aura filled the surroundings. No one dared to ignore it. You can do this? Saint Rentoin was extremely shocked. He did not expect Zichun to have such a terrifying thing on him. Immediately, a look of ecstasy appeared on his face because this way, Zichun had hope of escaping. Iron Sword was also very surprised. A smile appeared on his face. With this move, Zichun might really be able to escape. At this moment, Zichun did not use this arrow to threaten those rank 7s. Instead, he released the arrow directly. Wong. The bowstring trembled, the arrow shooting out, heading straight for a 7th rank. Pong. The arrow pierced through the 7th rank in an instant. With a huge tremor, this 7th rank's body exploded, blood raining down. When the other rank 7s saw this, their expressions changed again. They felt extremely lucky and planned to continue rushing towards Zichun. Pong. At this moment, the arrow that flew out actually turned back and pierced through the body of the 2nd rank 7. The body of this 7th rank cultivator exploded as well. His screams resounded throughout the world. After killing 2 rank 7s in a row, this arrow made entirely of energy actually did not disappear. It continued to fly towards the 3rd rank 7s. This rank 7's expression changed greatly, continuously retreating. Right now, everyone was staring at Feather Jian and those rank 7s. No one paid any attention to Zichun. Zichen's body immediately rose into the air and flew up into the sky. There was a defender formation in the sky. It was impossible to escape. He came to the bottom of the light shield and looked coldly at the panicked rank 7s below. Whoosh! At this moment, an arrow pierced through the clouds and flew directly toward the top of Zichen's head. The arrow landed on the light shield in the sky. A ripple appeared in the sky. Then, the ripple expanded and turned into a passageway. How could an arrow break the defender formation? Seeing this, Zichen's eyes revealed a touch of joy. The next moment, he rushed into the passageway. Everyone, Zichun will remember today's hospitality in his heart. When I return in the future, I will definitely treat everyone well. In the sky, Zichen's voice sounded. Then, his figure disappeared in the passageway. At the same time, the shocked crowd below came to their senses. They looked up at the sky and saw the passageway that was about to disappear. There was an uproar and exclamation. Those rank 7s did not immediately pursue. Instead, they stood where they were and stared in front of them in disbelief. Kongtoy still alive? Kima, weren't you killed by an arrow? I clearly saw that you were the one who died, and so was Locke. No, I saw you die. Those rank 7s spoke one after another. Their faces were full of shock. It's an illusion. The true power of that arrow was not to kill the enemy. It was an illusion. After a moment, those rank 7s came to their senses. Then, they were all very annoyed. Obviously, these powerful rank 7s had been tricked by Zichun. Earlier, no one died. The power of that arrow was not as strong as they thought. Then, they looked up at the sky. Being able to break the defender formation in one arrow was even more terrifying. "Sir, what's going on?" Bo Yuan came to Taijian's side in a flash. This time, when the Aborigines attacked Zichun, all the Shun clan experts chose to remain silent. Only Bo Yuan and Taijian stood on Zichun's side. Now that Zichun had successfully escaped, Bo Yuan was very happy. Taijian looked at the place where Zichun disappeared and said, "The defender formation was not damaged. That attack should be some kind of divine ability that broke through space. It does not mean that it has a strong attack power." Then, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. However, since it was unexpected, no one was able to detect it. Even I was fooled earlier. Wherever the arrow passed, the rank 7's bodies exploded. When he saw this scene earlier, he could not calm down. He was extremely shocked. How could he calm down to see if this was real or an illusion? It could be said that Zichun had tricked them and then successfully escaped. Soon, the others also understood this point. The uproar became even more intense. An imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of Saint Rentoin's mouth. Today, Zichun had successfully escaped. Then, next, he would wait patiently for Zichun's return. It was so close. Don't just stand there. Quickly send people out of the city to encircle and annihilate Zichun. Don't worry. Zichun's friends are still here. Capture them directly. After a brief shock, these rank 7s immediately gave the order. However, there was no one at the place where Zichun originally lived. All their companions had disappeared. One by one, the Aborigines had to fly out of the city. At the same time, many Shun clan forces also left the city and began to look for Zichun. Whether it was the Aborigines or the Shun clan, they all faintly felt that the structure of this world was about to change. Because Zichun's combat strength was too strong. If they could not kill him now, when he became stronger again, they would not be able to kill him even if they wanted to. After breaking the defender formation with one arrow, Zichun arrived outside the city. The next moment, he chose to teleport. This time, the teleportation belonged to the long-distance category. He went directly to 10,000 miles away. Then, he teleported again. After teleporting more than 10 times in a row, Zichun was more than 100,000 miles away. However, he still felt that it was not complete, so he teleported again and again. He did not stop until he was 1,000,000 miles away and could no longer encounter the Shun clan. Chapter 3107. The creatures from the other space-time were of different levels. After seeing them, a smile appeared on Zichun's face. He'd teleported millions of kilometers away. It would be very difficult for those 7th-rank creatures to find him. He was safe. He flashed back to the real world and saw the heavenly beast named Heavenbreaker. He was lying on a mountain peak with his eyes closed. It was unknown whether he was asleep or not. "Sir, can you deal with 7th-rank creatures?" Zichun asked politely. Zichun had seen everything that had happened. Those 7th-rank creatures hadn't been killed in real life. The real arrow hadn't come into contact with the 7th-rank creatures at all. That arrow had only opened up a path to the outside of the city. They're merely 7th-rank creatures. I can kill them with a bow. Heavenbreaker said disdainfully as he opened one of his eyes. He said it so casually. Zichun clearly didn't believe him. Heavenbreaker saw Zichun's doubtful expression. His tone became displeased. "What? Do you think I'm lying?" Zichun said, "If you can kill them with a bow, then why did we run out? Wouldn't it be better to just kill them with one arrow after another?" Heavenbreaker looked at Zichun with a mocking expression. "I really don't care about those 7th-rank creatures. However, there's something strange about that city. Once they control the formation, they can trap me, even if they can't kill me. If I'm trapped, then you can only die." "So you're doing this for me?" "Of course." Zichun didn't know if Heavenbreaker's words could be trusted, so he said again, "I plan to stay here for a while." If 7th rank creatures suddenly come looking for me, then it'll be very troublesome. Heaven Breaker said angrily. You don't believe me? Go and bring me the crystals. I'll give you 10 each time. Zichun took out 10 God King Soul Essences. He had a lot of them now, so he didn't feel the pinch at all. Heaven Breaker opened his mouth and swallowed the God King Soul Essences without saying anything else. Zichun relaxed and turned to leave. Evidently, Heaven Breaker really did have the ability to kill a 7th rank cultivator. Completely relieved, Zichun provided everyone with resources to refine and strive to break through. At the same time, he also distributed the armor he had bought from the core exchange to everyone. He was very glad that he had put everyone away at the first moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the time to take everyone away when he was in a hurry to escape. After that, he released the dark heavenly ants. Next, they were going to hunt down the creatures from the alternate dimension. Earning contribution points was secondary. They needed to grow, and the queen ant needed to break through. They were millions of miles away from the city, so they wouldn't be able to find them anytime soon. Therefore, Zichun was very safe right now. He sat cross-legged on a mountain peak and began to refine the godly king's soul essence. The contribution token was placed on his lap, and the light constantly changed. The few remaining contribution tokens on it began to rapidly increase. Zichun didn't want to waste any more time. He needed to break through as soon as possible because he wasn't sure when Tyrant and the others would come to this floor. If they came earlier, they would definitely be captured by the natives and used to blackmail him. The dark heavenly ants were densely packed and their numbers could be said to be endless. Under the control of the Ant King, they traversed underground. Only when they discovered creatures from another space-time that they could deal with would they emerge from underground and encircle those creatures. The Queen Ant was in Zichun's world. His world was in a state of unfolding. The Ant King of the dark heavenly ants was constantly leaving the battlefield and passing through the world passage to the Queen Ant. They then broke down the resources and gave them to the Queen Ant. After the Queen Ant devoured these resources, part of it would reproduce while the other part would absorb and break through. Heaven Breaker was on a mountain peak not far away. He could see the Queen Ant as soon as he opened his eyes. Every time he saw the Queen Ant, there would be a hint of disdain in his eyes. Although the Queen Ant was Heaven Breaker's neighbor, they had never interacted before. Every time the Queen Ant saw Heaven Breaker, she would feel fear from the bottom of her heart. She couldn't avoid such an existence and couldn't take the initiative to interact with him. If possible, she would even want to move to another place. When Heaven Breaker was free, he would walk around Zichun's world. Everything he saw was extremely disdainful, until one day, he broke through a space and saw the godly king's soul essences that Zichun had exchanged for. His expression was no longer filled with disdain. His eyes lit up as he swallowed them. He didn't know how many godly king soul essences he had swallowed until Zichun appeared in a flash and glared at Heaven Breaker. Heaven Breaker smacked his lips and said, "Kid, you're not bad. You actually hid so many crystals. Why didn't you take them out earlier?" "I have a use for all of them," Zichun said. "Nonsense. Who takes crystals just to look good? Cut the crap. I need half," Heaven Breaker said directly. "No, we have a lot of people. We need these things to break through." Zichun shook his head and refused decisively. He had hidden very deeply in this space. He didn't expect Heaven Breaker to discover him and break through it easily. Even the laws couldn't stop him. However, considering that Heaven Breaker could even break through the protective spell formation, it didn't seem like a big deal for him to open up an internal passageway in his world. Heaven Breaker narrowed his eyes at the sight of Zichun's stubborn attitude and said, "I heard that you want to leave this place? What does that have to do with you?" Zichun looked at Heaven Breaker. "Master Heaven Breaker can even break through this space. Do you think this matter has anything to do with me?" Heaven Breaker asked. Zichun's expression changed slightly upon hearing this. "You mean, you can break through this world?" "I think so." Heaven Breaker's voice was filled with uncertainty. However, his eyes were fixed on the godly king's soul essences. Zichun instantly guessed his meaning. He said indifferently, "Don't say that you're not sure. Even if you are, it's useless. I'll naturally be able to leave once I reach the 8th rank." Heaven Breaker smiled and said, "Go to the next level?" What do you mean by the next level? Zichen asked in confusion. Are you sure that you'll be able to return to where you want to go after you reach the 8th rank? Perhaps you'll be able to go to the next level, and then one level after another. You'll never be able to return. Heavenbreaker looked at Zichen. Zichen furrowed his brows and stared intently at Heavenbreaker. Heavenbreaker once again revealed an expression of disdain. Don't try to play tricks in front of me. I'll tell you one thing. I'll help you leave this level, and you'll give me all these crystals. Without these things, we won't be able to break through. When enemies come, we can only die. Zichen said with dissatisfaction. Since you already knew that you wanted these things, why didn't you go kill some powerful creatures from another space? As long as you have enough contribution points, you can exchange for these things without limit in that core trade area. Heavenbreaker stared at Zichen and bared his teeth in dissatisfaction. Why didn't you say so earlier? The man and beast began to argue. Zichen naturally couldn't give all of the Godly King's soul essences to Heavenbreaker. However, Heavenbreaker's ability to break through this world was still very tempting to Zichen. Perhaps he really would be able to borrow Heavenbreaker's power to leave. In the end, the two of them reached an agreement. Heavenbreaker would take a third of the crystals and give the rest to Zichen when he returned to the city. Chapter 3108. A month had passed. During this month, Zichen did not fight as he was refining the Supreme God Soul Essence. All the battles were handed over to the dark, heavenly ant. Zichen did not fight at all, but the contribution points he received were in the tens of millions. A month's time was not enough for the people in the city to search 1,000,000 miles away. Moreover, there were still many creatures from the other spacetime to deal with along the way. Soon, 2 months had passed. On this day, a powerful aura came from Zichen's world. The aura came from the queen ant. Its body expanded once again, and there was a powerful fluctuation coming from its body. Patillon, who was sleeping on the mountain peak, felt the fluctuation. He opened his eyes and took a glance at the queen ant before he continued to sleep. In a flash, Zichen came to the queen ant's side. The queen ant had advanced to grade 5. It had been stagnant at grade 4 for many years and had reached the peak long ago. Therefore, it made a breakthrough in a short period of time after coming to this world. Congratulations! Looking at the queen ant, Zichen said with a smile. A ray of light flew out from the queen ant's forehead and turned into a human lady. She was looking at Zichen. Zichen looked at the woman in tight black clothes in front of him and then looked at the queen ant in front of him with a puzzled expression. This is my clone. She can help me control the dark heavenly ant, the queen ant said. Zichen nodded. Although the queen ant was able to control the dark heavenly ants, it had always been giving orders. However, it was unable to see what the dark heavenly ants were doing. Now that it had this clone, it was able to see the dark heavenly ants with its own eyes. Do you want to go out and take a look? Zichen asked.
Yes.
The clone nodded. Zichen opened up his world. The lady in black left in a flash and went to the outside world. She saw the dark heavenly ant fighting below. They were densely packed, and they extended to the end of the world. The dark heavenly ant was like a pioneer. In the past few months, they had moved far away. There were no longer any dark heavenly ant alive. During this period, Shadowless went out to investigate but did not find the nest that gave birth to the creatures from the other spacetime. Zichen's contribution token was then handed over to the Ant Queen's clone. She had her own name, Paji. Paji took Zichen's token and followed beside Zichen. Occasionally, she would go to the periphery to check on the situation of the dark heavenly ants. Zichen sat cross-legged on the mountain peak, cultivating. Paji stood to the side, occasionally venturing out. She was very curious about this world. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. During this half a year, Paji had been following Zichen as if she was his bodyguard. One day, Paji, who usually only spoke when Zichen woke up, suddenly said, "Dark heavenly ants discovered humans." Zichen opened his eyes when he heard the sound. A glint flashed across his eyes. In less than a year, even if he continuously refined the Godly King's soul essence, it was not enough for him to break through. "Who is it?" Zichen asked. Paji shook her head, indicating that she could not tell who the dark heavenly ants were. However, the other party had already discovered the dark heavenly ants. Bring the dark, heavenly ants into the world. I'll go and take a look, Zichen said and headed in the direction that Paji pointed. Since they were discovered, they had to leave as the enemy would arrive at an extremely fast speed. Paji gestured for the dark, heavenly ants to enter the world that Zichen had unfolded. Zichen teleported to the place where the humans appeared. The one who came was from the God Clan. This surprised Zichen. In less than a year, the other party could find a place that was 1,000,000 miles away. It seemed that they had never slacked off. After Zichen appeared, he realized that the God Clan did not leave. Instead, he stood there as if waiting for him. Bei Yin greets Lord Zichen. The person who came was a rank 5 Divine Realm, but he bowed respectfully to Zichen, who was a rank 4 Divine Realm. Zichen looked at him indifferently. My lord, we have been looking for you for a long time. Bei Yin continued after seeing that Zichen was silent. Did you find me and want to kill me? Zichen said indifferently. Bei Yin smiled awkwardly and said, My lord, what are you saying? We are both from the God Clan camp. How can we deal with you? Zichen said, Don't deal with me. Does that mean you want to form an alliance with me? Bei Yin said, Before we came, our lord instructed us that if we meet Lord Zichen, we must ask him what resources he needs. If we can provide them, we will do our best to help. Under normal circumstances, Zichen should ask who his lord was at this time. However, Zichen did not ask that. He waved his hand and said, There's no need. After saying that, his figure disappeared. Bei Yin shouted twice but did not receive any response from Zichen. He sighed helplessly and turned to leave. All the dark, heavenly ants were put away. Paji also returned to Zichen's world. Then, Zichen teleported away. Of course, he did not continue to go deeper. Instead, he went to another place. Who are they? After everyone settled down again, Su Mingyao asked. It's the God Clan. His attitude is very friendly. Zichen said. In the end, he did not ask which faction the other party came from. However, he was very sure that the person was definitely not from the Iron Eagle faction. As for the other God Clan factions, Zichen was really not interested to know. He did not lack anything now. The only thing he lacked was his own combat strength. Once he became strong enough to fight against the rank 7 in this world, it would be time for him to return. He had the dark heavenly ants and did not need the help of others. The Iron Eagle was the only faction he recognized. Su Mingyao guessed the purpose of the person coming from Zichen's expression. However, she did not say anything. Previously, when Zichen needed help in the city, those factions chose to remain silent. Now that they saw Zichen's potential, it was naturally too late for them to form an alliance now. Zichen left again. Not long after he left, some rank 7 arrived. There were both God Clans and natives. After searching around, they naturally couldn't find Zichen. They couldn't even find a single dark heavenly ant. However, through the traces of battle, they could see the scale of the dark heavenly ants. Their originally ugly expressions became even uglier. What do we do now? Of course, we chase. For the next period of time, these rank 7 were constantly looking for Zichen. As Zichen was bringing along many dark heavenly ants, he could only change his location time and time again. He never met with these rank 7. After changing his direction many times, he continued to go deeper. Zichen was not sure what was in the depths of this world. He only knew that the number of powerhouses among the creatures from different space-time was increasing. It was so many that a large-scale battle with the dark, heavenly ants gradually became strenuous. Chapter 3109. Is that where he went? A rank 7 aboriginal stared ahead, his expression becoming very solemn. Beside him, the other aborigines stopped one after another. They also looked ahead as if there was a very dangerous existence there. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. If he really went there, he will definitely die. A rank 7 said casually, It seems that we don't have to worry anymore. His relaxed expression was obviously faked because no one could be relaxed in this place. The higher the rank, the more nervous they were when they came here. It seems that he will definitely die. Another rank 7 said. Although his expression was unnatural, his tone was very certain. The other rank 7 all nodded. Let's wait and see, just in case. These rank 7 wanted to stay here for a while. but for some reason, they were very scared, so they had to retreat. However, when they left some visible means here. If Zichen appeared, then they would be able to discover him at the first moment. Although this possibility was not big, if we can't kill him, we can drive him to a dangerous place. In that case, we have succeeded. One of the rank 7 said loudly because he was nervous. At this moment, this rank 7 turned his head and saw other rank 7 appearing not far away. These rank 7 were from the Protoss. Among these rank 7, there was Taijian from Taijian's force. He frowned and looked into the distance. He did not expect Zichen to go just like that. Sigh. He is really too stupid. A sigh came from beside him. Not only is he stupid, but he is also too self-righteous. We came here to look for him, just to remind him to be careful. I think he mistakenly thought that we saw his potential and wanted to form an alliance with him, so he has been avoiding us. Even if this kind of person has good potential, how can he achieve anything in the future without any brains? These rank 7 from the Protoss, one after another, their expressions were indescribably sarcastic. Taijian stood aside and did not speak, quietly looking ahead. Those aborigines were waiting here, obviously wondering if Zichen would return. As for these rank 7s who recklessly evaluated Zichen, he held a different opinion. If Zichen was really a brainless person, then it was impossible for him to overthrow all the aborigines when he was at the lower levels and give the Protoss a pure land. As for this infiltration, it should be an unintentional act, but who could guarantee that he would definitely die? Iron Sword, why aren't you talking? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. The other voices of discussion disappeared, and everyone turned to look at Taijian. The rank 7 who had spoken earlier continued. That idiot Zichen went straight into the depths. Looks like you've bet on the wrong thing. Not only are you not on good terms with the aborigines, but you've also affected the future development of your force. You haven't gained any benefits here. Taijian calmly replied, I've never placed any bets on him. I've always acted according to my heart. I think Zichen is a good person, and I don't think he should die under the schemes of the aboriginals. That's all. Haha, that makes sense. It's just a pity that he won't be able to return alive to repay you. After entering that area, even a rank 7 won't be able to survive, let alone a mere rank 4. This time, Taijian did not respond because it was meaningless. As the saying went, those who walk different paths could not make plans together. That area was very dangerous because all the high-level creatures from the alternate space-time were there, so much so that rank 7 did not dare to casually step into it. He was very worried about Zichen's advancement. This time was different from the last time in the city. Zichen only had to face a dozen rank 7. There were a lot of celestials among the creatures from the alternate space-time. It was said that this was the base camp of the creatures from the alternate space-time. Zichen did not know what he was about to face. He slowly went deeper with each teleportation. He did not know how deep he was going. It was not until the ranks of the creatures from the alternate space-time he encountered became higher and higher that many dark, heavenly ants could not come out to fight that he felt that something seemed to be wrong. At this moment, he finally met a creature from the alternate space-time that looked like a human. It was a rank 5, and its body still had the shadow of a creature from the alternate space-time. Zichen went forward with his saber and killed it easily. Next, he rested there and released some rank 4 and rank 3 dark heavenly ants. As the creatures from the alternate space-time here were of high ranks, rank 1 and rank 2 were almost useless, even if it was a group fight. Pa Ji was commanding these dark heavenly ants to fight while Zichen continued to cultivate. 3 days later, Pa Ji informed him that another rank 5 had been found and Zichen went to kill it. In the next few days, more rank 5 creatures appeared one after another. However, there were not many of them, and they were easily killed by Zichen. This repeated for about a month. Suddenly, one day, Pa Ji informed him that a small team of dark heavenly ants had been annihilated. What? Zichen opened his eyes. A small team, including the leader, was annihilated, Pa Ji said. Pa Ji said with a solemn expression. Zichen said, Let's go and take a look. The leader Pa Ji was talking about was the Ant King. They usually hid underground and would not fight. When they were in the lower levels, Only the spirit-devouring king grass could find them. Unexpectedly, they were found here. When Zichen arrived, he saw a human standing there. Obviously, there were no humans here. He was a creature from the alternate spacetime, but he did not have the aura that a creature from the alternate spacetime should have. He was a rank 6. When he saw Zichen and Pa Ji, he looked at them and said in surprise, "A mere rank 4 dares to come here. Interesting." After that, he looked at Pa Ji and said, "Are those black ants yours?" Pa Ji looked at him nervously. Zichen furrowed his brows. The man continued, "Since you're here, don't think of leaving." There was killing intent in his eyes, and a powerful rank 6 aura was released from his body. They were enemies. Naturally, he should not show mercy when he met. Therefore, he rushed forward and attacked with his saber. Buzz. The moment he attacked with his saber domain unfolded and the saber fell aggressively. Zichen did not hold back at all. He used all his strength to kill this ranked 6. Earlier, Zichen was still wondering why the aboriginals did not come after him. However, after hearing what the rank 6 said, he guessed a possibility. This place might be the territory of creatures from the alternate space-time. They would not dare to come here anymore. If he continued to stay here, he might not encounter the aboriginals, but he would encounter powerful creatures from the alternate space-time. Under such circumstances, Zichen had to consider whether he should continue to stay here. After thinking about it, he decided to stay here for a while and take a look. As long as there were no rank 7 powerhouses, he could protect himself. Chapter 31:10. The reason why Zichen knew there were more rank 6 was because another dark heavenly ant troop had been annihilated. Those who were able to scream and fight in this area were the powerhouses of the dark heavenly ants. The annihilation of every troop was a great loss to the queen. "The second troop has been annihilated," Pa Ji said again. In a short period of time, 2 troops had disappeared. "Let's go." Zichen led Pa Ji forward and saw a group of rank 6. They were moving forward in a straight line. Wherever they passed, they would clean up the surrounding dark heavenly ants. Zichen's expression changed when he saw this. There was a flash in his hand, and he took out the longbow that Sky Splitter had transformed into without hesitation. As both parties were too far apart and they were scattered, it was difficult for the saber territory to cover all of them. He pulled the bowstring and the energy between heaven and earth began to distort. It gathered crazily on the longbow. A strong aura surged out and an arrow took shape automatically. Swoosh! The arrow shot out and drew a rainbow light, landing on a rank 6. Bang! There was a loud tremor and the rank 6 body exploded. This was the first time Zichen had used an arrow to kill someone. He was very satisfied with its performance. Next, he continued to shoot arrow after arrow. Every time an arrow landed, a rank 6 would be killed. As they continued to get closer, the number of rank 6 became fewer. Those rank 6 who were charging forward stopped. There was obvious fear in their eyes. They, who could transform into humans, had already gained intelligence. They stopped, but Zichen did not stop. The arrows continued to fly, and the sound of the arrows hitting the ground resounded in the sky. Blood splattered everywhere. In the sky, there was rule light falling continuously. The splattering blood rain disappeared after landing on the ground. Zichen's contribution token continued to shine. His contribution kept increasing. It had been going on for so long. The contribution on Zichen's token had become an astronomical figure. There were rank 6 who decided to run away. However, how could his speed keep up with Zichen? Soon, these rank 6 were all killed. After the rank 6 who came forward were all killed, Zichen signaled Pa Ji to get the dark heavenly ants to return quickly. "We have to go." He had killed a lot of rank 6 in one shot. He believed that rank 7s would come very soon. This was a realm he could not deal with. Although Heaven Breaker spoke with confidence, he couldn't place all of his hopes on Heaven Breaker. Following Zichen's instructions, Pa Ji immediately signaled for those dark heavenly ants to withdraw. However, before he could collect all the dark heavenly ants, a ray of light appeared beside Zichen. "Human, why don't you come with me?" This sudden sound caused Zichen's expression to change greatly. He turned around and slashed down with his saber. A saber light flickering with the power of yin and yang descended from the sky with a strong aura. This rank 7's expression was indifferent as he raised his palm towards the sky. Pong! The saber light was shattered, and Zichun quickly retreated. I didn't mean to hurt you. Come with me. The rank 7 said again. His speed was even faster. With a difference of 3 ranks, Zichun's speed was clearly slower than his opponent's. Zichun naturally wouldn't believe his opponent's words. Seeing that he couldn't get rid of his opponent, he immediately activated his saber realm. The saber ancestor's steel appeared, and the realm was formed. The rank 7 was successfully trapped in it. Die! Zichun shouted. He rushed forward with his saber in hand. For saber intents surrounded the saber as he slashed down forcefully. Feeling the power of this saber, the rank 7's expression became extremely solemn. A strong aura erupted as he threw a punch at the saber light. Boom! There was a huge shock of energy and the saber light shattered. Zichun's body flew backward and landed at the edge of the realm. His face was a little pale as he stared at the rank 7 who was retreating in front of him. The previous powerful saber could kill a rank 6, but obviously, it couldn't do anything to a rank 7. You're only a rank 4. You can't do anything to me. The rank 7 stared at Zichun and said, Come with me to the depths. I mean you no harm. Of course, Zichun didn't believe him. There was a cold glint in his eyes. There was a flash in his hand, and the longbow appeared again. At the same time, he transmitted his voice to Heavenbreaker, who was in the longbow. Success or failure depends on this. Don't worry. It's just killing a rank 7. It's a piece of cake. Heavenbreaker's confident voice came from the longbow. Zichun was also relieved. He immediately exerted his strength and pulled the longbow into a full moon. Seeing this, the rank 7's expression changed drastically. His body shook and immediately turned into dozens of clones. However, he seemed to think that it was still useless. So, his body flashed again and turned into hundreds and thousands of clones until they occupied more than half of the realm. Zichun's longbow was already pulled into a full moon. The energy arrow was also formed again, but he didn't know which target to shoot at. Which one? Zichun transmitted his voice and asked. However, he didn't immediately get a response from Heavenbreaker. Although the rank 7 clones in front of him didn't attack immediately, Zichun was still very anxious. Tell me quickly, which one should I target? Zichun asked. After waiting for a while, Heavenbreaker's voice came. It's useless. Just surrender. Surrender? Are you kidding me? At worst, Zichun was about to say that he could escape at worst. However, just as he was about to put away the longbow, he saw several figures appear outside the sword territory. They were all rank 7. There were dozens of them. The powerful force contained in the longbow dissipated. The energy arrow disappeared with it. Zichun was extremely shocked. He was only a rank 4, but the other side had dozens of rank 7s. Whoosh! In the sword territory, all the clones disappeared. The rank 7s who reappeared said, Come with me. Our master wants to see you. These rank 7s, masters were no doubt the mother nest that Zichun had been asking Shadowless to find. He didn't expect that they would take the initiative to find him before he could find them. However, that was obviously the strongest mother nest. After going there, the chances of survival were too slim. Zichun was unwilling. He looked at this rank 7. He was about to withdraw the sword territory, then open the world and teleport away directly. Go and have a look. I want to see what kind of existence it is too. At this moment, Heavenbreaker's voice came. You won't trick me, right? Zichun was uncertain. What's the use of tricking you? I'm familiar with the body movement technique that rank 7 just used. Heavenbreaker said. Zichun nodded. He said to that rank 7, All right then, I'll go with you. He withdrew the sword territory and put away the longbow. That rank 7 also nodded at Zichun in response. Then, Zichun found that there was an inexplicable oppressive force in the space he was in. Obviously, the other party was worried that he would run away. Then, Zichun was led by this group of rank 7s. They walked toward the depths of this world. That was the true core of the alternate space-time creatures. P.S. I've been working on the WeChat account. I have the idea of putting the article on the WeChat account for everyone to read for free. For now, I'm still a little confused. First, I'll announce the WeChat account. Everyone can follow it first. Later, I'll ask others how to upload a free article of more than 600 words. Chapter 31:11. Under the lead of a group of rank 7s, Zi-chun walked towards the core of this area. Along the way, these rank 7s didn't make things difficult for him, but they suppressed the space he was in to prevent him from escaping. Looking at so many rank 7s around him, Zi-chun had already given up on escaping. He asked Heaven Patian what was going on, but there was no answer. Now, he could only take one step at a time. In the process of going deeper and deeper, Zi-chun finally arrived at the core of the creatures from another time and space. He saw a city, and the people living in the city were all creatures from another time and space. This city had no walls, only scattered buildings. Along the way, these rank 7s didn't talk to Zi-chun, and at this time, they also didn't explain the layout of this place to him. Along the way, other creatures from another time and space had strange expressions when they saw Zi-chun. It seemed that they shouldn't have brought an enemy here, especially with such a large force. Zi-chun came to listen, and these rank 7s brought him to the core of this city. He was very shocked because those who lived here were at least rank SXS, and there were a lot of them. They stood outside, and the suppression still didn't disappear. One of the rank 7s motioned for Zi-chun to go in. Zi-chun could only go to the front, and before he could knock, a voice sounded. "Come in." It was a woman's voice. Zi-chun pushed the door and entered, and saw a young woman sitting in the hall, looking at him with a smile. This was a stranger, of course. Zi-chun said warily, "Why are you looking for me?" "To see you," the woman said. Zi-chun became more and more confused. He didn't know her, so what was there to see? "I want to see what kind of person the master of the Heaven Patian beast is." Hearing this, Zi-chun was even more confused. She knew Heaven Patian? Swoosh. At this moment, a ray of light appeared. It was Heaven Patian. He stood beside Zi-chun, looked at the woman and said, "You're wrong. He's not my master. Also, I don't seem to know you either." The woman stood up with a smile, then stepped aside. "Patian, long time no see." A voice came from behind the screen. Another young and beautiful woman walked out. She wore a colorful dress and slowly walked forward. "It really is you," Heaven Breaker said. "I didn't expect you to still be alive. Aren't you living very well too?" The woman in the colorful dress said with a smile. She gently waved her hand, and the woman from before left. "You know him?" Zi-chun looked at Heaven Breaker. The woman in the colorful dress looked at Zi-chun and smiled. "This is your master? Let me introduce you." "Humph." Heaven Breaker snorted coldly. Zi-chun took the initiative to say, "My name is Zi-chun. I'm not Heaven Breaker's master." The woman in the colorful dress said, "You must be its master, because it only followed its master and never worked for anyone else. Whoever orders him to do so must die." Zi-chun's expression changed when he heard this. Heaven Breaker remained silent. The woman in the colorful dress continued, "Looks like you still don't know about this." Heaven Breaker said with dissatisfaction, "That's enough. He's not my master. Besides, he only told me to assist him, but he didn't tell me to recognize him as my master. But you, why are you here? Weren't you here as well?" The woman in the colorful dress said, "Back then, I felt an aura that was very similar to yours, but it quickly disappeared. Now, it looks like I was right. That aura was yours, and you went to the next level while I was on this level." Heaven Breaker nodded. He was in a deep slumber back then, so he didn't know what exactly happened. Zi-chun, on the other hand, was a little surprised and asked, "When the god of heaven created this space, were you also present?" The woman in the colorful dress smiled and said, "I wasn't there, so they didn't know of my existence. But I did witness the formation of this world with my own eyes." Zi-chun was even more shocked. He had witnessed the formation of this world with his own eyes. What was the other party's background? How powerful was it? "Don't think so highly of it. It's also trapped here," Heaven Breaker said indifferently. The woman in the colorful dress didn't deny it. She nodded and said, "That's right. I'm trapped here, and I have no choice but to compromise with the rules here." All the enemies you see are actually my subjects. Seeing that Ziqian was still confused, Heaven Breaker continued. It's the mother nest you've been looking for all this time. What? Ziqian's expression changed greatly. He looked at the woman in disbelief. Ever since he escaped from that city, he had been using Shadowless to find the mother nest through the creatures from other dimensions. He didn't expect the mother nest to be this woman in front of him. The woman in the colorful dress was exposed, but she didn't get angry. She looked at Ziqian and said, "Back then, I was only a strand of remnant consciousness and was very weak. Your god race's so-called heavenly god imprisoned me here and made me fuse with the rules to create our subjects for you to train on." "What's a heavenly god?" Heaven Breaker suddenly asked. "A controller of the laws," the woman in the colorful dress said. Heaven Breaker snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. Many years have passed since then. Of course, that's because they didn't know my identity. If they did, they probably wouldn't be like this. However, the reason it was like this back then was because I purposely exposed my weak aura. I needed an extremely long time to recover, so I needed a safe place like this. Ziqian nodded, but he didn't know why the woman in the colorful dress was telling him this, or why she had the 7th-rank cultivators bring him here. He asked, "Did you bring me here to see Heaven Breaker?" "It's just a dead bug. Do you need to be so polite to it? It has a name, and it's called Fina. Moreover, it's not here to see me. It's here to see you. It has something to ask of you." Heaven Breaker spoke again, clearly very dissatisfied. The woman in the colorful dress named Fina glanced at Heaven Breaker with a somewhat resentful expression. She didn't deny it, so it was a tacit admission. Ziqian looked at her and said, Then why did you come to see me?" Ziqian originally wanted to continue being polite, but after Heaven Breaker glared fiercely at him, he could only change his words. "Take me away," Fina said. "What?" Ziqian didn't dare to believe it. "Are you deaf? It said it wants you to take it away. It's trapped here and can't leave at all," Heaven Breaker said, dissatisfied. In truth, he was dissatisfied with Ziqian's attitude. He wasn't that respectful to him, Lord Heaven Breaker, but lowered his attitude toward a mere bug. "When Heaven Breaker came here, I didn't sense his aura. I only sensed it when you used it. That's not called using it. I showed myself of my own accord." Heaven Breaker interrupted the other party. Fina ignored Heaven Breaker and continued, "I'm guessing that you have an extraordinary item on you that can hide Heaven Breaker. So, if you can take Heaven Breaker away, you can definitely take me away." Seeing that Ziqian was still in a daze, Fina continued, "You don't need to worry about being taken advantage of. I'll take some of my subjects away. If you take me away, I'll fight for you. Moreover, my combat prowess is much greater than that of your queen ant. It'll still take countless years for it to grow to my level." After hearing Fina's words, Ziqian felt a bit dizzy. He felt like he had been hit by a pie that fell from the sky. How could there be such a good thing in this world? P.S. I'm still figuring out the details of the public account. You can add it first. If you can't, you can try again. Chapter 31:12. As the mother nest of this world, Fina had countless subordinates. Moreover, they were all at the Godly King realm. She suddenly expressed that she wanted to follow Ziqian. This made Ziqian feel as if a huge pie had fallen on his head. He felt a little dizzy. This surprise came too quickly. However, he did not let this huge surprise get to his head. Instead, he asked in confusion, "How can I trust you?" Fina glanced at Heaven Breaker, who was beside her. Ziqian also looked at Heaven Breaker. Heaven Breaker said, "Although it's very annoying, it's still trustworthy." Ziqian nodded and said, "All right then, what do I need to do?" "You just need to take me with you when you leave. As for what you want to do now, it's up to you," Fina said. "Breaking this world requires a huge amount of energy. Although I can break it effortlessly, it will consume a lot of energy." Heaven Breaker looked at Ziqian and said. After hearing Heaven Breaker's words, Ziqian knew that he would need to make some adjustments. It would probably be very strenuous. However, he would not leave now. Even if he wanted to leave, it would definitely not be now. This was because this place was very suitable for godly kings to break through. He needed to let himself grow. At the same time, he also needed to wait for Tyrant and the others to arrive. He was not sure if there was a lower level. However, with Heavenbreaker's ability to break through space, he did not need to worry about where he could go after reaching the 8th stage. This was because he did not plan to go there. He was going to return to the divine world. I need to break through and grow. However, since he had promised Fina, he would become allies with these creatures from another space-time. In this case, it seemed like he would not be able to fight. Fina said with a smile, "Survival of the fittest. It's the same everywhere. You can continue to fight here. Your dark heavenly ant can also continue to participate in the battle." "Can I?" Zichen asked. "Of course you can. Normally, when the people from that city can't kill us, we will set up a battlefield ourselves. Through life and death battles, we will select and nurture the outstanding ones. Now that you have the dark heavenly ant, you can put it into the battlefield. As such, it couldn't be better." He didn't know when Tyrant and the others would arrive. Zichen didn't want to waste any time. Under Fina's lead, he headed towards the battlefield. The battlefield was huge, and the low-level creatures living in it were killing each other. Paji appeared beside Zichen. Looking at the battlefield, a light flashed in her eyes. She was very satisfied. Looking at the satisfied smile on Paji's face, Zichen immediately opened up his world channel. An endless stream of dark, heavenly ants swarmed towards the battlefield. The space-time creatures that were originally fighting seemed to have received a new order. They stopped fighting and charged towards the dark, heavenly ants. A large-scale battle broke out. "Don't worry, this place is safe enough." Fina glanced at Paji and said to Zichen. Zichen nodded and released the queen ant. The queen ant had already known everything that happened here through Paji. She didn't have any objections. It was rare to have such a place to improve. Naturally, she was very happy. "You will stay here to grow," Zichen said to the queen ant. The queen ant nodded to show that she had no objections. Zichen left with Fina. He was going to go into seclusion and cultivate wholeheartedly. Su Mingyao and the others appeared in his world channel. Fina arranged their respective residences for them. Those space-time creatures that had transformed into human form seemed to have received an order. They were no longer hostile towards Zichen and the others. Heavenbreaker didn't enter Zichen's world channel again. Instead, he stayed in this area. During this period, Zichen had asked about Heavenbreaker's identity. However, Heavenbreaker told him that his memory was damaged and he had forgotten about it. Clearly, he was trying to brush him off. As for Fina saying that Heavenbreaker would only recognize an owner, Zichen didn't ask about it. It didn't matter if Heavenbreaker recognized an owner or not. It was fine as long as Heavenbreaker was really helping him. Outside the area where the powerhouse from another space-time was stationed, the natives were still waiting. The threat that Zichen posed to them was too great. Naturally, they didn't want him to live. Even though they knew that the odds were against him, they still waited here. In another area, those rank 7 gods from the God Clan were also waiting here. As long as these natives didn't give up, they wouldn't either. After all, Zichen's potential was too great. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. There was no movement in the depths. A month was enough for Zichen to go in for a long time before he was killed. 2 months, 3 months. Until a year had passed, Zichen still hadn't come out. These natives were almost certain that Zichen had died in there. "This guy is dead for sure. We should go now. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come out to warn him. What a waste of time." A rank 7 god said unhappily. At the same time, he glanced at Taijian, his eyes full of sarcasm. Taijian had bet on Zichen. If Zichen died, Taijian would get nothing. In this year, although Taijian had been staying here, he also knew what happened in the city. Taijian's forces were being suppressed by other natives. Taijian was in a bad mood, not only because there was no news about Zichen, but also because of the God Clan's deliberate sarcasm and behavior. He knew that he would be suppressed after helping Zichen. What he didn't expect was that the God Clan would suppress him too. Those rank 7 natives left some backup in the front and then left. During this time, they sent some rank 6 gods to guard here. Bo Yuan was also transferred by Taijian. Taijian's forces were being suppressed, so he had to go back and take charge. Otherwise, his forces would collapse. "Sir, is Zichen really?" Bo Yuan looked at Taijian. Tai Jian shook his head slowly and said, "Those rank 7 gods couldn't do anything to him in the city, let alone here. Don't worry, he won't die so easily. You stay here and let me know if there's any news." Bo Yuan nodded. Next, he and some other rank 6 gods from other forces waited here. This wait lasted for decades. There was no news for decades, so more rank 6 gods left. Soon, another decade passed. There were only 2 rank 6 gods left here. One was a rank 6 god clan native, and the other was Bo Yuan. After waiting for decades, Zichun still hadn't come out. Whether it was the natives or the god clan, they had all given up. Only Bo Yuan still believed that Zichun was still alive. In the core area where the powerhouses of the space-time creatures lived, Zichun, who had been in seclusion for 100 years, had countless resources to refine. As the God King's soul essence in his hand was refined and disappeared, a powerful aura was released from his body. This was the aura of a rank 5. He had broken through. P.S. I've basically figured out how to post. I'll continue to post. It seems like I can only post once a day. Everyone, add the public account. You'll be able to figure it out in a few days. Chapter 31:13. After cultivating in seclusion for more than 100 years, Zichen broke through again and reached the 5th rank. He was very satisfied with this breakthrough speed. Aside from the fact that this place was very suitable for the divine race to improve their cultivation, the main reason was that he had a large number of Divine King's soul essences. Resources were the most important thing on the path of cultivation. Without resources, no matter how talented one was, it would be difficult for them to advance. While breaking through, the Saber Ancestors Tablet and the Wing Ancestors Tablet also had to follow. This way, he could ensure the greatest increase in his combat strength. After breaking through, Zichun didn't rest. He continued to refine resources, waiting for the next breakthrough. 100 years had passed. He didn't know what the situation on the next level was like. If the monk and the others came to this world and were surrounded by the natives, it would be troublesome. Not long after Zichen's breakthrough, Su Mingyao and the others also reached the 5th rank. Reaching the 5th rank was naturally delightful. During these years, Heaven Breaker, who had devoured many Divine King's soul essences, also said that he could break through this space effortlessly. As long as Zichun wanted to leave, he could do so at any time. Zichun still had doubts about this. Moreover, the monk and the others hadn't come yet, so he naturally couldn't leave. On this day, Zichun suddenly thought of a problem and immediately went to find Heaven Breaker. Heaven Breaker was stunned when he heard Zichun's words. "Why? Can't I?" Zichun asked. Heaven Breaker said, "I can only break open the space. As for where the space is after breaking open, I can't guarantee." Zichun said unhappily, "Then you said you can take me away?" Heaven Breaker said, "Of course I can take you away, but you said you want to go to the lower level. This is extremely difficult." Zichen came to find Heaven Breaker because he wanted Heaven Breaker to open the lower level space so that he could find the monk and tell him some things. Or rather, he could directly bring them up. Heaven Breaker glanced at Zichen and said, "I can break open the space many times, again and again, and I can always reach the place you said. However, the lower level is too small, and I didn't take the initiative to confirm the location. It will be very troublesome." Thus, Zichen had to give up on this idea and continued to refine the Divine King's soul essences. Time passed. Everything was calm. In the huge battlefield, the dark heavenly ants were undergoing baptism after baptism of blood. Through countless battles, the dark heavenly ants were constantly growing. Due to the Queen Ant's breakthrough, many dark heavenly ants had also broken through to grade 5 over the years. At the same time, the Ant Queen had also reproduced many dark heavenly ants over the years. They all started with Wang Yiping and continued to grow after the bloody battle. Their numbers were many times more than when Zichun first came to this world. Everything was just as Fina had said. It would take the Ant Queen countless years to reach her level. This was because the dark heavenly ants paled in comparison to the creatures from another space-time, be it in terms of quantity or grade. The Ant Queen's clone, Pago, was standing in the middle of the battlefield, bored. This battle was completely under the control of the Ant Kings. Her only purpose here was to help Zichen hold the contribution token and look at the numbers on it. The numbers continued to increase, reaching an astronomical figure. She had heard that one could use contribution points to exchange for resources in the city. It was said that it was very cheap. Looking at the numbers on the contribution token, she was a little worried about the exchange. What if Zichun had exchanged for everything, but still hadn't used up all the contribution points? Pago's worry was naturally unnecessary. She wasn't worried, she was just bored. The battlefield was a huge depression. She sat barefoot on it, swinging her slender legs gently as she looked at the battlefield below. A ray of light suddenly appeared on the battlefield. That ray of light was an ant king. The ant king went to find the ant queen and transferred the rule power it obtained from the dark, heavenly ants to the ant queen. When it was transferring, a portion of it would be absorbed by the ant king. After the ant queen obtained the energy, a portion of it would be used to grow, while the other portion would be used to give birth to new dark heavenly ants. This process repeated endlessly. As she had nowhere else to go, she had to witness such a scene every day. Compared to the dark heavenly ant, those creatures from another space-time were much more independent. They could grow in battle, level by level. When they reached the 5th stage, they would show signs of transforming. After reaching grade 5, they would leave as the highest grade of the dark heavenly ants was grade 5. She watched in boredom for more than 200 years. During this period, she didn't cultivate, but her realm grew naturally. Pago, who had been maintaining this posture, suddenly raised her beautiful eyebrows. She slowly turned her head and looked in a certain direction. That direction was the city where the Protoss lived. It had been more than 200 years since Zichun fought in the city. In these 200 years, the Aborigines had gone from being worried and vigilant about Zichun to calming down and finally forgetting about him. They had already concluded that Zichun was dead and no longer paid attention to Zichun. However, the Iron Sword faction was still not doing well. Compared to 200 years ago, the Iron Sword faction had lost 2/3 of its members. Other than a small number who died in battle, the rest had left the Iron Sword faction and joined other factions. All of this was due to Iron Sword and Bo Yuan's obstruction of the Aborigines 200 years ago. Originally, the Protoss believed that Zichun would definitely return. After joining the Iron Sword faction, there would definitely be many benefits. However, Zichun did not return. The Iron Sword faction was suppressed like never before. As a result, the number of members decreased again and again. Fortunately, the Iron Sword faction was still in charge of the faction. As a result, the faction was barely holding on. However, the treatment was much worse than before. Saint Rentoin of the Saint Lewin family had not been doing well for the past 200 years. Although no one had direct evidence to prove that he had colluded with Zichun, he was still being suppressed all these years. It could be said that he was barely alive. As for his advancement, there was no need to think about it. From that day onwards, the Saint Lewin family did not provide him with any resources. He stayed in the family every day like a young master who was just waiting to die. In these 200 years, his realm did not improve at all. Saint Rentoin and the Iron Sword faction, one was the most miserable among the Aborigines, and the other was the most miserable among the Protoss. On this day, a teleportation light lit up and a group of people came to the city from the lower level. The city that had been peaceful for more than 200 years had some ripples because of this. Is this the second level? It seems to be different from what Lord Zeng expected. Well, since everyone is in the city, there shouldn't be any danger. It's been more than 200 years. With Zichun's methods, he should have made a great name for himself here. Let's go and ask someone. A bald monk walked out of the light shield and began to inquire about Zichun. This name that had almost been forgotten appeared in everyone's sight again. Chapter 31:14. After more than 200 years, Monk brought people to this floor. Almost all the people who stayed back then were here. Zhang Haoyan, Li Ai, Long Hu, Luo Yi, and the others were all here. Even Kang Emo was here. This friend, I would like to ask you if you know Zichun? Monk quickly found a member of the Divine Clan. He was very good at picking people. He found a third class because he was a fourth class. Being stopped suddenly, the third class didn't look good. However, after feeling Monk's fourth class aura, he could only suppress his unhappiness and said, "No, Monk was puzzled and said, "That's impossible. With his troublemaking personality, he shouldn't be unknown after 200 years. Is it because he's been oppressed here? So he's keeping a low profile and waiting for Lord Zhang to come to this world and show his power?" The third class listened to Monk's nagging and was very dissatisfied. However, he was soon attracted by a number. 200 years. Previously, he felt like he had heard the name Zichen somewhere before. However, he couldn't remember where. Now that he thought of what happened 200 years ago, he immediately remembered. 200 years ago, there was a big battle in the city. A fourth class killed many fifth class and sixth class. In the end, he escaped from the siege of a group of seventh class. That person was Zichen. Monk was happily thinking about how to show his power. Li Ai noticed the change in the third-class expression and asked, "You know Zichen, right?" The third rank glanced at Li Ai and said uncertainly, 200 years ago, there was a person called Zichen who went on a killing spree in the city. In the end, he escaped from the encirclement of a group of seventh-rank martial artists. I don't know if the person you're looking for is Zichen. What? The smile on Monk's face froze. He stared at the third class and said, "What happened? Tell me in detail." The third class roughly explained what happened that year. In the end, he said, "It's been 200 years. Everyone says he's dead." Bullsh *T. How can he be dead? Monk said unhappily. Why can he be dead? A cold voice sounded. He won't die even if you die. Dissatisfied, the monk turned around and realized that many people were approaching them from all directions. Behind these people, there was another group of people. Among these people, the weakest were rank 4, and some were rank 5. In the distance, there was the aura of a rank 6 surging. The monk was a little dumbfounded. What did that mean? Beside him, the expressions of the others also changed. After rank 6, a rank 7 aura appeared. Damn it, what the hell is going on? The monk was infuriated, but he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, "So many people. Are you here to welcome us?" He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, but you don't have to be so formal." At the front of the crowd, rank 4s and rank 5s retreated. Rank 7 stepped forward while rank SIXS followed behind, surrounding all of them. One of the rank 7 looked at the monk and said, "Are you Zichen's friend?" The third pin expert ran away in fear. The monk said innocently, "Zichen? Who is he? Do I know him?" Li Ai wanted to laugh, but he didn't dare to. "You're quite good at acting." The seventh stage expert glanced at the monk sarcastically. "Who is this Zichen you're talking about? Does he have a grudge against you? Don't worry, since you've come to welcome me like this, we're friends. As long as I see him, I'll definitely help you get rid of him." The monk patted his chest and said, "Yes, your Lord Buddha's promise is absolute." The seventh stage expert frowned. His gaze moved away from the talkative bald man and fell on the others. Then he said coldly, "I thought since you were Zichen's friends, you should have some tricks up your sleeves. Now it seems that's all there is to it." "Yes, arrest them all. Isn't it against the rules to arrest people here for no reason?" At this moment, yet another voice rang out. A god race being who was clad in battle armor had arrived at this place. "Taijian, how dare you come here? Do you think you've had too good of a life these past few years?" The seventh stage expert who spoke earlier looked at Taijian sarcastically. "Dora, you should have some shame if you live in this world, right? Back then, your excuse for attacking Zichen was that Zichen killed people first, so you were punishing evil. But now, they've just come to this world. What right do you have to arrest them?" Taijian looked at the seventh stage expert named Dora. "Do you think there are no rules in this city in your eyes?" The monk and the others did not know the details of that year, but this seventh stage expert of the Protoss came here to protect them. So he immediately said, "Sir, you're right. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. We didn't do anything wrong. Why do you want to attack us?" Dora ignored the talkative monk. Instead, he stared at Taijian and said, "Our business is none of your business. If you continue to meddle in other people's business, Taijian faction will definitely be completely destroyed." The monk immediately said, "We'll join Taijian faction for free. We don't want any reward. We'll work hard for the growth of Taijian faction." Taijian frowned. Wasn't this guy talking too much? They've joined Taijian, so they're members of Taijian now. Taijian looked at Dora and said, "We must take these people away." Dora said coldly, "If you want to stop us, Taijian faction will definitely be destroyed." Taijian said coldly, "I won't stop you. But how can you ignore the rules of the city?" The other party snorted and said, "Take them all away." Taijian did not stop them, but said sarcastically, "Looks like you're really scared by Zichun. Why would we be afraid of a dead man? If we're not afraid, why would we attack his friends?" The monk was helpless. He did not expect to become a prisoner as soon as he arrived here. He did not resist and could only leave with these people. "Sir Taijian, quickly find Zichun to save us," Tyrant shouted before he left. "He's long dead," a seventh stage expert said coldly. Pasha looked away and looked at the queen ant below. Both parties communicated quickly with their divine thoughts. After that, Pasha left and went to find Zichun. Seeing Pasha, Zichun was surprised and asked, "Why are you here?" Pasha said with a serious expression, "I sensed the queen ant's aura." Zichun said with a smile, "You're the queen ant's incarnation. Is there a problem with sensing it?" Pasha said, "It's the second queen ant." "What?" Zichun heard, and his expression changed instantly. He knew very well what the second queen ant meant. The queen ant was left on the first level under the monk's control. It's only been 200 years, and the monk has already brought the queen ant here? The thing on the first level had reached this level. It was obvious that the monk had come. Although he did not know why he was so fast, Zichun knew very well what the monk and the others would face once they arrived in the city. He looked at Pasha and said, "Are you guys ready?" Pasha nodded. "Let's go back." Zichun transmitted his voice to the others who were still in seclusion. Chapter 31:15. Su Mingyao opened her eyes and a hazy light flashed in her eyes. She stood up and walked out of the room. She heard Zichun's voice transmission and knew that monk had come to this world. When she walked out of the room, Lin Shui and the others had all appeared. Everyone had expected the arrival of monk and the others, so they didn't panic. They were just a little surprised that monk would come at this time. Zichun went to the queen ant and kept all the dark heavenly ants and the contribution token. Fina came after hearing the news and asked Zichun what happened. Zichun told her what happened. Fina looked at him apologetically and said, "Because of the rules, I'm afraid I can't help you." Zichun said with a smile, "No need, I have a way." He brought all the dark heavenly ants and prepared to return to the city. Fina said again, "When you return, you'd better take a detour because your enemy left something in front of you. You can see everything around you." Zichun nodded and thanked her. After Patian returned, he kept everyone and teleported. The long journey was nothing for Zichun, who could teleport with the help of the world force. After deliberately taking a detour, Zichun handed the matter of teleportation to his doppelganger. He discussed with Su Mingyao and the others what to do next. Su Mingyao said, "The best result is that they didn't recognize monk and they're safe. However, the possibility of this is not high. They'll either be captured or killed. The former is more likely." Everyone nodded. If they killed monk and the others, it was completely unnecessary because they were only fourth-grade experts. If they were captured, they could use them to threaten Zichun. Who cares? We have the dark heavenly ants. We'll kill our way into the city and slaughter all the natives. Demon Ape said loudly. The others laughed. If there was no other way, they would have to fight. But the problem was, how should they fight? Zichun looked at everyone and said, "If you can outsmart them, it's best not to fight." Everyone looked at Zichun. Zichun said, "The grand formation in the city is a threat to Patian. If we enter the city to fight, it will be extremely disadvantageous for us. If one were to attack the city from the outside, it would take a very long time to break through the formation. This is enough time to threaten us. If that was the case, it would be troublesome." Su Mingyao looked at Zichun and asked, "How did you know that the monk was coming?" "That's what Paige said." "In that case, Pa Ji can sense the existence of the queen ant." Su Mingyao looked at Pa Ji. Pa Ji nodded. "I can feel it." Su Mingyao pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? You and Pasha enter the city first and find a way to find the monks. If they haven't been caught, you can just take them and leave. If you're caught, think of a way to rescue them. If you can't rescue them silently, use a diversion tactic to lure all the experts out of the city. Then, you can make a move. As for the method to lure the experts, it's naturally to let the dark heavenly ant show up. Zichen said, I can leave a golden body behind. There was still some distance to go. This distance was enough for them to discuss the details of the rescue. Su Mingyao said, according to Pa Ji's perception, the monks have only been here for a few hours. Even if they have caught the monks, they must be discussing how to deal with them. They won't expect us to come. This is an opportunity to catch them off guard. Zichen nodded in agreement. The final details were completely agreed upon. After teleporting again and again, they finally approached the city. Then, Zichen and Pa Ji walked out. No one had seen Pa Ji before, so she didn't have to deliberately change her appearance. Zichen's figure flickered and turned into a fourth-class divine clan member. He walked toward the city with Pa Ji. Along the way, they saw some divine clan members who had also returned from battle. They were talking and laughing and seemed to be very satisfied with the current situation. At the same time, some people walked out of the city and discussed some things that had just happened. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts and listened to the discussions. Soon, he found some useful clues. Sure enough, they were caught. These shameless people. Among the discussions, there were discussions about him. Everyone thought that since he hadn't disappeared for more than 200 years, he must be dead. Even so, those forces were still worried and directly captured the monks. Entering the city again and seeing the bustling scene, Zichen felt a little emotional. If it weren't for Pa Tian, it would have been difficult for him to leave. After entering the city and entering the crowd, Zichen looked at Pa Ji. Follow me. Pa Ji led Zichen to the east of the city. The sun rose in the east, and the golden sunlight shone down. The core of the exchange castle was dyed golden. Zichen's gaze moved away from the exchange castle. He had obtained countless contribution points this time. If there was a chance, he would definitely exchange them again. This was what they had discussed in advance before coming. After all, after hundreds of years of consumption and potions devouring, Zichen's cultivation resources were getting fewer and fewer. Because they couldn't fly in the city, the two took almost 4 hours. During this time, they passed through countless streets and finally arrived at their destination. Pa Ji looked at the huge house in front of them and said, They are here. Zichen nodded and released his spiritual thoughts. This place didn't block his spiritual thoughts. Soon, he saw everything in the house. During this time, he sensed the breath of the monks. When his spiritual thoughts came to a halt, he felt a strong threat. There should be a rank 7 inside. His spiritual thoughts avoided this place in advance and extended to other places. Zichen soon found another building. Outside the building, there were 2 rank 6 and several rank 5. They seemed to be guarding something. When Zichen probed further, he sensed the monk's aura. Found them. Zichen's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. Since he had found them, the next step was to think of a way to save them. The dangerous breath he sensed earlier must have come from those rank 7. Now that they were gathered, they should be discussing how to deal with the monks. The best way was to not alert the enemy. Otherwise, it would be very dangerous. After thinking about it, Zichen finally came up with a plan. However, it required a risk. After going around this place and coming to a deserted alley, Zichen released his spiritual thoughts. After confirming that there were no abnormalities and even using the yin-yang eye, he immediately entered the house. At the same time, Shadowless went straight to those rank 7 who were in a discussion. He needed to see what they looked like and then report back to Zichen. Chapter 31:16. Back then, Zichen had seen many rank 7 martial artists, but he couldn't be sure who among them were involved. Therefore, even if he transformed, he still needed Shadowless to investigate. When Shadowless moved forward, Zichen had already transformed into an aboriginal and walked forward. During this time, he deliberately avoided meeting other aboriginals because he transformed randomly without any basis. After a while, Shadowless appeared in front of Zichen and told him the face of a person. Zichen remembered the person, so his figure flashed and transformed into the person's appearance. After transforming into a rank 7, Zichen went straight to the place where the monk was locked up. During this time, Shadowless took the lead to check on the monk and the others. They're all here. Shadowless' voice sounded. Zichen walked to the outside of the place where the monk and the others were locked up and saw the guards. After seeing Zichen as a rank 7, they were surprised and saluted Zichen one after another. Zichen nodded indifferently. He didn't stop and continued walking forward. Sir, the rank 6 martial artist followed. Zichen waved his hand and said, "Open this place. You all wait outside. I have something to ask." Yes. The rank 6 martial artist didn't notice anything unusual. With a flash of light in his hand, he opened the restriction here and Zichen walked in. The door behind him closed again and Zichen walked forward. You guys are really shameless. You can't beat Zichen, so you come looking for trouble with us. You know, we're not familiar with Zichen. We're just ordinary partners. Maybe I'll kill him when the time comes. It's really unnecessary for you to catch us. As soon as Zichen came in, he heard the monk's words and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At first, he wanted to call Pa Ji out to see if they were real people. Now that he heard the monk's words, it was completely unnecessary. The others weren't as shameless as the monk. They all stared coldly at Zichen. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts and said, "Don't talk and don't resist." He used his own voice. These people's expressions were slightly stunned, somewhat in disbelief. The monk seemed to want to say something, but Zichen coldly glanced at him and angrily transmitted his voice to him. "Shut up, you damn baldy. I'll deal with you later. Let's see who kills who first." Shwa. The next moment, Zichen opened the world and took everyone in. During this time, nothing unexpected happened. Everything went smoothly. Of course, this was mainly because the natives did not think that Zichen would appear at this time. After all, he had disappeared for hundreds of years. Zichen is dead. Zichen, who had become a rank 7, said. The only monk who was not put away said, "It's good that we're dead. Let us go quickly. We're your allies." Obviously, this guy was extremely cooperative. However, this might also be his true thoughts. Although we're certain that he's dead, have you ever discussed how to meet him? Zichen asked again, deliberately making his voice loud. At the same time, rays of light flew out and turned into the appearance of these people. They did not emit any aura of cultivation, as if they had been sealed. Meet him? We're not familiar with him. Of course, we won't meet him. However, if I see him, I'll definitely bump into his head. This damn guy, how dare he harm Lord Zeng? The monk said again. Humph. Zichen snorted coldly, indicating that this guy should leave. The light flashed again. The real monk left and a fake monk appeared. The fake monk said to Zichen, "Don't go. Let us go. We're really not familiar with Zichen." Zichen did not respond. After leaving the room, he said to the two rank 6, "Watch this place." The rank SIXS nodded and continued to add restrictions. At this moment, the fake monk's voice was still ringing. However, after the restrictions were added again, the voice had disappeared. This was obviously isolated. Zichen turned into a rank 7 and turned to leave. When he reached a deserted place, he changed his appearance again and left quietly. Just you guys. After leaving successfully, Zichen returned to the world and asked the monk. There's also Kongamo. However, he was brought to the Kong family. The monk asked in surprise, "Didn't you disappear for more than 200 years? How did you appear so soon?" Zichen did not explain for the monk. Now, he had to find a way to save Kongamo. What's the Kong family's attitude towards Kongamo? Zichen asked. Their attitude is naturally unfriendly. However, they won't make things too difficult for him, right? The monk said after thinking about it. After all, Kongamo was the pure blood of the Kong family. Logically, there should not be any problems. However, Zichen was still somewhat worried. However, the Kong family was different from this place. If he wanted to sneak in, it would be much more difficult. Moreover, he did not know when the other party would find out about everything he did earlier. Zichen decided to go to the Kong family first. It was not difficult to find out the location of this family. When he arrived outside the Kong family, Zichen found that the place was heavily guarded. During this time, he extended his spiritual senses and did not find Kongamo. After hesitating for a while, Zichun decided to go to the trading place first. This time, only Kang Imo was in the hands of the other party. Once he appeared, the Kang family would be faced with two choices. One was to protect Kang Imo and be on good terms with him. The other was to use Kang Imo to threaten him. Both sides would completely fall out. As for what the Kang family would choose, Zichun had no confidence in his heart. At this time, the monk told him what happened here. During this time, a person called Tai Jian wanted to protect him but failed. Zichun's heart suddenly moved. He decided to go find Tai Jian first. Tai Jian was among the forces. During this period of time, Tai Jian's forces were very miserable. Because of what happened today, some people could not hold on and chose to leave. Tai Jian leaned back on the chair and frowned, thinking about what happened today. He did not believe that Zichun died just like that. Although the natives were very sure, they were still worried in their hearts. Otherwise, they would not have captured the monk and the others. Just as he was hesitating whether he should do something or not, he suddenly heard a voice transmission. He was slightly startled and turned his head in confusion. When this voice rang out again, his eyes flashed with a brilliant light, appearing to be in disbelief. He walked out of the room and walked outside. He walked into a restaurant and ordered a jug of wine and 2 dishes. In another place, Zichun and Pa Ji sat together. Pa Ji looked curiously at the food on the plate. She had never seen or eaten it before. "You actually came back." Tai Jian transmitted his voice, looking very incredulous. "This time, I came here to ask for a favor." Zichun transmitted his voice. The two did not sit together. This was Tai Jian's idea. From this, Zichun could see his situation. "You want me to help you save your friends? I'm afraid I can't do that." Tai Jian drank a cup of wine. Chapter 31:17. Hearing Zichun's words, Tai Jian was very surprised and turned his head in astonishment. "I haven't rescued Kang Imo yet. If there's a chance later, I hope you can help," Zichun said through voice transmission. "If there's a chance, I'll definitely help. However, there shouldn't be such a chance, right?" Tai Jian said. "I'll create a chance later. I have another question. Sir, are there any restrictions on exchanging resources in the core place?" Zichun asked again. "Not really. Although they're suppressing my Tai Jian force, they won't make things difficult for me. A rank 7, Tai Jian continued. "All right, I'll have to trouble you to guard the vicinity of Kang family. I'll go to the core trading place." Zichun's purpose of going to the core trading place was to exchange for cultivation resources. However, during this period, he needed to create a panic. He and Pa Ji walked to the core trading place. At this moment, Pa Ji informed the queen ant outside the city. A black line appeared. The black line was approaching the city. There were Protoss and natives going in and out of the city gate. Soon, someone noticed something unusual and looked ahead. When they saw the black line at the end of their sight, their faces changed and they retreated into the city. Exclamations could be heard from the city. Then, it rose and fell. "The monsters are attacking the city. The dark heavenly ants have appeared outside the city. Countless dark heavenly ants have arrived outside the city." In a short while, the exclamations spread throughout the city. Hence, all the Protoss and natives rushed to the top of the city wall to see what was going on. At the same time, in the mansion, the rank 7 who were discussing how to deal with the monk and the rest were shocked when they heard the news. "Let's go and see." They left the mansion and flew to the top of the city wall. When they arrived at the top of the city wall, they saw the black mass of dark heavenly ants and Zichun, who was standing in front of the dark heavenly ants. "He's here so soon?" A rank 7 was stunned and said, "Did he get the news? There's been no news for hundreds of years. How could he appear at this time? Could it be a coincidence?" The group of rank 7s clearly could not figure out Zichun's intentions. At that moment, more people came to the top of the city wall. When they saw the dark heavenly ants in the distance, they gasped. Zichun, who was at the core trading area, quickly heard of this news. The existences who were exchanging for opportunities rushed out one after another. Clearly, they all wanted to see what was going on. For most of the Protoss in the city, the return of Zichun was an extremely good thing because he could make the natives tremble in fear. While the crowd was running away, Zichen transformed into Iron Sword and walked towards the core area. There were natives guarding the place in secret, but they would definitely not stop a rank 7. Moreover, Taijian was also a frequent visitor here all these years, so no one paid any attention to him. Entering the core area again, it was still the same as before. There were many opportunities, but the ancient ancestral tablet had disappeared. Zichun came to the place where he could exchange for the King of God's soul essences. He immediately pressed his hand on the barrier. With a thought, the King of God's soul essences flowed towards Zichen continuously. At the same time, Zichen's spiritual thoughts extended quickly, looking for some high-quality armor. For the past 200 years, he had almost endless contribution points. Hence, he could exchange for anything he wanted. Li Ai and the rest were new here, so they needed protective armor. Zichun was exchanging here, and no one noticed him. Iron Sword concealed his aura, changed his appearance, and guarded outside the Kong family, watching every move of the Kong family. After hearing the arrival of the dark heavenly ant army, the Kong family was in an uproar. As everyone knew, the only person who could control the dark heavenly ants in this world was Zichen. In other words, Zichen was not dead. When he left back then, he was a rank 4. Now that 200 years had passed, what realm was he in? While the Kong family was in an uproar, they were also panicking. The rank 7s of the Kong family flew towards the city wall. Before that, they needed to know the purpose of Zichen's return. Was he here to save people? However, they had just caught him today. How could they know so quickly? Everyone, I'm back. When they reached the city wall, Zichen's voice came through the city guarding formation. Do you still remember what I said when I left back then? Zichen could also see these people through the transparent light shield. He smiled coldly and said, "Thank you for your warm hospitality. Today, I'm going to destroy this city." When everyone heard what Zichen said, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Obviously, he did not know that his friends had come and were caught by him. All of this was really a coincidence. Zichen did not talk nonsense. He directly waved his hand to signal the dark heavenly ants to charge forward and start attacking the city guarding formation. Virum. The city guarding formation was attacked and began to tremble. Beams of strong light fell from above, heading towards these dark heavenly ants. In the blink of an eye, a large number of dark heavenly ants died. Zichen was a little surprised that the city guarding formation could still counterattack. Hence, he waved his hand again. The dark heavenly ants' bodies shone brightly and went underground directly. They began to attack the city guarding formation from underground. At that moment, the formation lost its target, and the strong light gradually disappeared. Seeing that Zichen attacked the formation as soon as he arrived, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he really did not know that his friends had been caught. Zichen, your friends are in my hands. If you don't care about their lives, just attack directly. A cold voice came from above the city wall. Friends? What friends? Zichen was stunned when he heard it. It seems that you still don't know? Your friends from the lower levels have already arrived. Unfortunately, they've arrived today. A rank 7s laughed proudly. One of them is bald. I heard that he's the person in charge below you. Do you think I'll believe that? Zichen laughed sarcastically. It's up to you to believe it or not. They've already fallen into my hands. If you know what's good for you, surrender quickly. Otherwise, they'll die in front of you. The rank 7s turned around and said to a rank 6, go and bring those people here. A rank SIXS responded and stepped back. Zichen's expression gradually turned cold. Initially, I wanted to teach you all a lesson. Now, it seems that I must destroy all of you. The rank 7s laughed. It's too early to say this now. When your friends appear, I think you'll know what to do. Zichen said, when I was at the lower levels, the Perry family used my friends to threaten me. You should know the consequences. Humph. Then we'll wait and see. Chapter 31:18. Zichen walked out of the core trading area. This time, there were no accidents. He got what he wanted. Countless contribution points were exchanged for countless resources. It took a long time just to collect those resources. Fortunately, he made it in time. Walking out of the core trading area, Zichen's appearance changed again. He rushed in the direction of the Kong family. At the same time, he quickly communicated with the golden body outside the city. After learning that those people went to bring the monk and the others, Zichun had an idea in his mind. He met up with Iron Sword outside the Kong family. During the meeting, he asked, "Did anyone leave?" Iron Sword said, "The Kong family's rank 7s have all left." "What about Kong Imo?" "Still inside." Zichun nodded. A plan came to his mind. "I hope you can save me when I'm in danger." Before Iron Sword agreed, Zichun's appearance changed again. After that, he walked directly to the Kong family. "The ancestor ordered me to bring Kong Imo to the city wall immediately." He flew directly to the Kong family without knocking on the door. He turned into a rank SIXS. Although it was a strange face, everyone knew that Zichun was outside, so no one cared. After hearing Zichun's words, the people of the Kong family walked out one after another. They looked at the strange Zichun with a surprised expression. "The others have already gone. We have to hurry," Zichun said again. "Follow me." A rank SIXS led Zichun to the place where Kong Imo lived. During this time, Zichun released his spiritual thoughts and quickly sensed Kong Mo's location. Kong Mo's strength was not sealed, but there were rank SIXs guarding outside his residence. Obviously, it was impossible for him to escape. "Who are you?" The rank SIXS guarding Kong Imo rushed at Zichun, who was coming. "Is it important?" Zichun stared at him. "I've never seen you before." The rank SIXS face was obviously hostile. "I won't hand him over to you," Zichun said unhappily. "Do we need to go to the city wall to confirm our identities? If you think you're strong enough, you should bring Kong Imo to the city wall yourself. I believe you'll have the courage to fight Zichun then." With that, Zichun turned around and left. "I've already delivered the message. If you delay, it will cause great losses to the various forces. You will have to bear the consequences yourselves." This rank 6, who was supposed to be guarding Kong Imo but was actually monitoring him, had an extremely ugly expression on his face. He was very clear about Zichun's battle record. More than 200 years ago, he could already kill a rank 6. What more now? At this moment, the door opened and Kong Imo walked out. Zichun, who was about to leave, stopped. Naturally, he couldn't really leave. He turned around and said to Kong Imo, "You're Kong Imo? Would you like to come with me?" Kong Imo glanced at that rank 6, then looked at Zichun. Zichun said. Kong Mo's expression changed slightly. Then, he glanced at the rank 6 again, then walked towards Zichun. "All right, I'll go with you." Kong Imo said. "I'll go with you." The rank 6 from earlier said. Kong Imo turned around, looked at this rank 6 and said, "Great-grandfather, don't worry, I'll be fine." That rank 6 who brought Zichun here had already left. Now that Zichun was here, danger could happen at any time. No one paid attention to this place. When Zichun heard Kong Mo's words, he seemed very surprised. He deliberately sized up this rank 6. He guessed this rank SIXS identity. "Let's go." Kong Imo turned around, as if he wanted to explain to Zichun. Zichun grabbed Kong Imo and flew into the distance. That rank 6 watched Kong Imo leave. His expression changed. In the end, he let out a low sigh and said nothing. At this moment, his heart could not calm down for a long time, because he also guessed the identity of the person who left. He was very shocked. Zichun took Kong Imo and left the Kong family mansion. Then, they walked in the direction outside the city. When no one noticed, Zichun manifested 2 doppelgangers, which turned into his and Kong Mo's appearances. The real him changed his appearance again. He put Kong Imo away and went to see Iron Sword, who was on guard at the side. Everything went well. He nodded at Iron Sword and said, "What are your plans next?" Iron Sword asked, "I still don't have the confidence to slaughter all of them, so I don't plan to do anything this time. However, before I leave, I have to teach them a lesson." Everyone had been rescued. This made Zichun breathe a sigh of relief. He did not dare to do anything in this city because of the defender formation. However, this matter could not be let go just like that. "What are you planning to do?" "I plan to go inside again." Zichun pointed at the trading castle floating in the air. As he spoke, Zichun took out a large amount of God King's soul essence. He placed it in a divine ring and handed it to Iron Sword. These resources can be considered as compensation for the oppression of Iron Sword all these years. Sir, please accept them. Iron Sword shook his head and said, We can't accept these resources. Sir, you don't want them, but others do. Zichun said again. Iron Sword once again refused. Through this matter, Iron Sword's future situation will definitely be much better. It's not good to give them opportunities now. We'll wait for your return. Iron Sword insisted on not accepting, so Zichun could only nod. While the two sides were still fighting outside, Zichun came to the trading ground again. However, this time, his purpose was not to trade, but to snatch resources. What do you want? A native who was looking at the shop looked at Zichun and said indifferently, I'll go in and take a look. Zichun said and walked in. That native frowned. There was obvious dissatisfaction in his eyes. After entering the shop, Zichun's lips curled into a smile. His eyes flashed coldly. A sharp light appeared and swept towards the native at the side. After a while, Zichun walked out. The goods in the shop had all disappeared. The native was lying in a pool of blood. Next, Zichun wandered around the various shops until he had robbed all of the shops in the area. After that, he left the trading ground. Heaven Splitter appeared in the form of a bow. The energy of heaven and earth surged wildly. Zichun drew his bow and shot an arrow. Wong. The void trembled. The arrow shot into the sky and easily tore open the sky. A passage appeared. The people in the city noticed this. They looked up and saw a hole in the city's barrier. A person walked towards the hole with a bow in his hand. Zichun walked into the passageway, and his figure immediately disappeared. Exclamations sounded in the city. How similar was this scene from 200 years ago? The person who just disappeared is Zichun. Isn't Zichun outside the city? Why is he in the city? Following the cries of surprise, this news immediately spread in all directions. Zichun walked into the passage and arrived outside the city. His figure flashed and disappeared from the light barrier. Chapter 31:19. When Zichun arrived at the outside world, the golden body was still having a war of words with those rank 7s. Both sides were exchanging blows, neither giving way to the other. Zichun's figure flashed and appeared in front of the doppelganger. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw Zichun. We can go now. Zichun looked at everyone and smiled in a relaxed manner. On the city wall, when the others saw that there were two Zichun on the scene, they immediately exclaimed in surprise. The Zichun who was having a war of words with them earlier disappeared in a flash, leaving behind the Zichun who appeared later. This Zichun turned around and said to the front, Today's incident is a lesson to all of you. The next time I come, it will be the time of your family's annihilation. As his voice fell, the monk and the others who were standing in the city disappeared. Seeing this, those rank 7s' faces changed drastically. Obviously, these people were fake. Zichun's sudden arrival was not a coincidence. He came deliberately. The dark heavenly ants that had sneaked into the ground appeared continuously and were kept into Zichun's world. Damn it! Some rank 7s cursed angrily. Obviously, they were careless. However, what they could not understand was, how did Zichun know that these people were captured? Could it be that Iron Sword's people tipped him off? That did not seem to be possible, because they did not know where Zichun was, so how could Taijian know? At this moment, Zichun waved his hand, indicating for everyone to leave. You want to leave just like that? At this moment, a cold voice was heard. Kang Imo is still in our hands. Don't you care about his life? Zichun turned around and smiled. His smile was full of sarcasm. These rank 7s understood the chill in his smile and said angrily, Don't let him escape. The next moment, some rank 7s flew out and attacked Zichun. Looking at these rank 7s, Zichun's eyes flashed coldly. Are you confident? He asked Patian telepathically. Of course. Heaven Breaker smiled. This isn't a city. With the longbow in hand, Zichun pulled the bowstring. The energy of heaven and earth in all directions converged towards the longbow in a frenzy. A powerful aura filled the world. Sensing this aura, those rank 7s' expressions changed drastically. Whoosh! The longbow was drawn to a full moon, and Zichun released the arrow. The energy arrow cut through the air, heading straight for a rank 7. This rank 7's expression changed drastically. He put up a defense, and a set of armor automatically appeared on his body. When the arrow arrived, the defense shattered, and the armor was penetrated. Wong. The arrow that pierced through the air disappeared. That rank 7 who was charging forward froze, falling toward the ground. A rank 7 dead. At the same time, Zichen drew his bow again and shot another arrow. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard again. The second rank 7 was killed. At this moment, the longbow that Sky Splitter had transformed into displayed extremely powerful killing power. 2 arrows killed 2 rank 7s. This shocked the other rank 7s, and they subconsciously stopped. Don't stop, just charge over. Once you get close, his bow and arrow will lose its effect. A rank 7 shouted loudly. You're too slow. Get out of the way. I'll do it myself. Remember, 1,000 crystals per arrow. At the same time, Sky Splitter's voice sounded in Zichen's mind. Only then did Zichen remember that Sky Splitter could fight on his own. Thus, he let go of his hand and pulled the longbow itself. The energy of heaven and earth rapidly surged into the longbow, turning into an energy arrow. Wong. The arrow flew out, heading straight for the rank 7s who were charging forward. Wong. Immediately after, a second arrow flew out, almost following the first arrow. At the same time, several more arrows flew out. Each arrow represented 1,000 godly king soul essences. If it was in the past, Zichen would definitely be heartbroken. But now, he had countless godly king soul essences on him, so he naturally couldn't bear to part with them. As the arrows flew out, they were all killed. None of the rank 7s could block this arrow. In the blink of an eye, these rank 7s who were charging forward were all dead. Heaven and earth were silent. No sound could be heard anymore. Those people on the city wall looked outside through the light shield, as if they were petrified. More than 10 rank 7s died just like that. Even though they saw it with their own eyes, they still couldn't believe it. Some people came to their senses and used special ocular techniques one after another. They felt that all of this might be the same as last time, just an illusion. But they were disappointed. This was something that really happened, not an illusion. Dead. All of them were dead. Iron Sword also appeared on the city wall. Looking at those rank 7's corpses on the ground, his face was full of shock. Also appearing on the city wall was Saint Rentoine, who had been suppressed all this time. Apart from shock, he was also full of excitement. Compared to the time when he only brought Zichen to the core trading ground once, his gains from now on would be unimaginably great. He didn't expose himself immediately because Zichen obviously had no intention of entering the city. He was collecting those rank 7s, spoils of war, and then obtained their contribution tokens. Zichen was surprised to find that the contribution tokens on them didn't disappear. Therefore, he summed up all the contributions together. It was a very large number. At the same time, he turned around and shouted at the city wall, "Brothers of Iron Sword have been wronged all these years. The contribution tokens here are compensation for everyone." He used energy to hold the token, and the token flew up to the city wall. At this moment, on the city wall, of course, there were other Iron Sword Force members standing there. They didn't move but looked at Iron Sword, looking very excited. Iron Sword nodded. Swoosh. Immediately, someone flew out and took the token. Then, he gave a fist salute to Zichen to thank him. "Let's go." Zichen nodded at the other party, then turned around and left. At this moment, apart from those native forces who lost rank 7s, the ones with the most complicated expressions were those who left Iron Sword Force early in the morning. As long as they persevered for one more day, they would see the light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, the person who received the token walked into the city gate, flew up to the city wall again, and handed the contribution token to Iron Sword. Iron Sword said, "You guys go ahead and distribute it, including those who left today?" "Yes." Hearing Iron Sword's words, those people's expressions became more complicated. They all smiled bitterly. They would rather not have the contribution tokens this time. They wanted to continue joining Iron Sword Force. However, it was obvious that Iron Sword wouldn't let them join again. This time, Iron Sword had risen. Zichen left. He didn't enter the city because the formation in the city was very scary. Once it was activated, it would pose a great threat to him. However, he would return to this place when he reached rank SIXS. Monk and the others appeared one after another, looking very excited. In just one day, they had encountered a surprise and a shock. He released the other queen ant, and at the same time, released those dark heavenly ants. "How's the first level?" Zichen asked. "It's developing well. I've left a team of dark heavenly ants under Wei Li's control. I've also given Wei Li full authority there," Monk said. "What about Yin Wei and the others?" Chapter 31:20. The development of the lower level was going smoothly, and Yin Wei was not messing around. He was focused on developing his forces. Obviously, he wanted to leave with a group of people. The forces he left in the heavenly realm should no longer exist. However, Yin Wei's idea was obviously going to fail. The situation here was different, and he did not know where the next place was. Kuli's forces did not go back on their words. They were developing well in the lower level and got along well with the Protoss. They could even compete with the royal forces. "You can even kill a rank 7? Why do we have to leave?" Monk asked in confusion as they continued to move forward. "The formation in the city can restrain me. Only death awaits us if we enter," Zichun replied. "Where are we going now?" Monk asked again. "To the depths." Since the matter here was over, Zichun brought everyone to teleport. When they arrived, Monk's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the creatures from another space-time. "You were here all these years when you disappeared?" Zichun nodded. "How is this possible?" Monk could not believe it. At this moment, Fina came from afar. "Is it done?" "Yes," Zichun said. Fina chatted briefly with Zichun, then left, leaving Monk and the rest to ask questions. After Zichun explained patiently, everyone was surprised and happy. "So, you're controlling another army?" Monk was surprised. "No control, just cooperation," Zichun emphasized. Next, everyone began to cultivate. They cultivated endlessly until it was time for them to return. After Zichun left, the city became bustling with activity. This time, more than a dozen rank 7 were killed. What about the next time? Would they completely destroy the indigenous forces? All the Protoss were looking forward to it. Iron Sword Force, which was suppressed by many forces, suddenly became the focus. Many Protoss requested to join them. Unfortunately, Iron Sword announced that they would no longer recruit outsiders from today onwards. The forces of the God Clan who had followed the natives to suppress Iron Sword came to visit. Their words were full of flattery and flattery. This was because everyone knew that the next time Zichun returned, it would be time to destroy the native forces. Unlike the lower levels, the natives of this level no longer had a symbiotic relationship with the god race. Instead, they were pure enemies. That was because there was a core trading ground here. As long as one had enough contribution points, they could exchange for countless resources. These resources were provided by the rules and were endless. There was no need for natives. For the Protoss, Zichun belonged to the same faction, so naturally, they would not make things difficult for him. But it was different for the natives. The aboriginals were already in chaos, and all kinds of feelings of panic were spreading. What followed next was naturally a battle. However, unlike the battles in the past, their opponents this time were the dark heavenly ants. They were said to be endless and inexhaustible. Those were true monsters, and there was no end to them. The St. Lewin family began to hold an emergency meeting. St. Lewin, who had always been disliked, actually came, and his seat was relatively close to the front. The old ancestor of the St. Lewin family looked at the flattered St. Rentoin and said kindly, Tell us the truth. Did you make a deal with Zichun?" St. Rentoin said with a blank face, "What?" The old man explained patiently, "At this point, the life and death of the family are in your hands. There's no need for you to hide it from everyone. If you have a deal with Zichun, then we will support you fully." St. Rentoin was even more confused. He said in fear and trepidation, "Old ancestor, what are you trying to say? I have nothing to do with Zichun. Back then, he almost killed me. Every time I'm with him, I'm very scared." "Really?" The old man stared into St. Rentoin's eyes. "How can it be fake? If you don't believe me, you can ask my father," said St. Rentoin. The old man was furious when he thought of that drunkard. "All right, you can leave now." The old man waved his hand and said, "Huh." Saint Rentoine was stunned. "Get out. Is this a place where you can sit?" The old man narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint shot out from his eyes. Saint Rentoine scrambled away with a frightened look on his face. "What a piece of trash. You're just like your father. Serves you right that you can't even drink the cheapest wine." A look of disgust flashed in the old man's eyes. Then he looked at the others and said, "All right, it's time to discuss how to deal with Zichun." The same thing was happening in other families. When the Kong family learned that Kong Imo had been taken away, their faces immediately turned ugly. Then they went to find the rank 6 who was guarding Kong Imo. At this moment, the first thing they thought of was how to establish a relationship with Zichen. If there was no relationship, then they would discuss how to start a war. The days of the Iron Sword faction instantly became better. All the native factions spread the news that anyone who belonged to the Iron Sword faction could use the Awakening Altar for free. The price of exchanging resources was also halved. When the news came out, many Protoss were envious. Unfortunately, the Iron Sword faction no longer recruited outsiders. At the same time, the Iron Sword faction sent out an order that no one in the faction was allowed to exchange resources or awaken their powers. He knew very well how much affection he had with Zichun. He could not let it be exhausted just because of some small gains. His order was very decisive. Anyone who disobeyed would be expelled from the Iron Sword faction immediately. Zichun had no idea what happened in the city. After returning, he went into seclusion. Paji was still on the battlefield, watching the battle below in boredom. However, compared to before, there was one more Ant Queen. Tyrant and the others all went into seclusion. Before long, they all broke through to the rank 5. Heavenbreaker swallowed a large amount of the God King's soul essence, then found a place to slowly refine it. This world was peaceful. However, everyone knew that this peace was only temporary. Once Zichen broke through, this world would once again become turbulent. As for what this world would become in the future, no one knew. Taking advantage of the fact that Zichun had yet to arrive, the native factions in the city continued to expand their influence. They gave them abundant resources and recruited armies. However, it was useless. All the Protoss deliberately kept a distance from them. This time, their former allies were indifferent to the olive branches they threw at them. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 200 years passed. Zichen had been in this world for over 400 years. Under the continuous refining of the God King's soul essence, he broke through to the next realm. A strong aura surged from his body. The light of yin and yang shone from the surface of his body. He broke through to the rank 6 king realm. This realm was equivalent to the rank 6 king realm in the divine world. He was only 3 levels away from the top rank 9 king realm. He was not too far away from the divine realm. Of course, whether he could reach the divine realm was another matter. Once he reached the rank 6 king realm, he would have the strength to fight against a rank 7 king realm, even if there was a formation in the city. At the same time, Zichen also planned to go back and see how the faction he founded was doing. Chapter 31-21. Zichen had the thought of going back, but he couldn't go alone. The others were still in seclusion. Zichen had to wait for everyone to break through before they could leave together. He didn't want to waste the time he was waiting. He could go and deal with the Aborigines first. He went to Paji and told her his idea. The Queen Ant naturally didn't have any objections. It was the same wherever they went to fight. After a few hundred years of development, the number of dark heavenly ants had increased by more than 10 times. Their overall realm had also increased significantly. The Queen Ant didn't go with him. Paji followed Zichen. Then, Zichen led 1/3 of the dark heavenly ants and headed toward the city. When they left the core area and were a few 100,000 miles away from the city, the dark heavenly ants all appeared. They fought as they approached the city. 200 years passed in the blink of an eye. The Aborigines never let down their guard. When the dark heavenly ants appeared a few 100,000 miles away, they were the first to receive the news. The quiet city immediately became chaotic. All the Aborigines began to gather and discuss how to deal with Zichen. The God clan in the city was silent. They decided not to interfere in the matter no matter what. even if the Aborigines gave them a great opportunity. The people of Iron Sword Force who had stayed in the city for more than 200 years heaved a sigh of relief. In the past 200 years, they didn't go out to fight because of Iron Sword's order. They didn't want to get involved in karma. They stayed in the city all the time. Iron Sword only interacted with some god clan and never had anything to do with the Aborigines. The Aborigines meeting this time was naturally to discuss how to deal with Zichen. However, the Kong clan's attitude seemed to be a little evasive. They weren't as proactive as before. The old man from St. Louis clan looked at the rank 7 of the Kong clan and said, "I know that the Kong clan and Zichen have some ties. However, that doesn't guarantee that the Kong clan can be completely preserved. Even if the Kong clan still exists, can you guarantee that it's the Kong clan that you control?" The Aborigines discussed for a long time. When the dark, heavenly ants advanced 100,000 miles, the Aborigines took the initiative to leave the city. They formed an army and found the dark, heavenly ants. The first large-scale war broke out. What made Zichen rejoice was that there was no sign of the god race in this war. As expected, the Aborigines suffered heavy losses in this battle. The dark, heavenly ant didn't stop moving forward. During this period of time, battles broke out one after another. In every battle, the Aborigines suffered great losses. The dark heavenly ants also suffered casualties. However, in front of the huge number of dark heavenly ants, these losses were nothing. The dark heavenly ant advanced on the ground while Zichen and Paji advanced in the air. Paji looked ahead and said, "They're here again." Zichen nodded. His figure flashed as he charged forward. All the natives below grade 5 were dealt with by the dark heavenly ants. However, the grade 6 and grade 7 natives were killed by Zichen. Killing a rank 6 was extremely easy. He had done it when he was a rank 4. Now that he had reached rank 6, killing those of the same rank would be an instant kill. His Chongdao was unsheathed. The saber gleamed as it swept past a rank X body. Fresh blood splattered. Rank SIX's body fell to the ground. The 2 rank SIXs following behind him were stunned. There was obvious fear in their eyes. However, they didn't retreat in fear. Instead, they rushed forward and displayed their strongest killing moves. Facing the 2's strongest attacks, Zichen only swung his saber. The saber gleam slashed and destroyed the attacks. The 2 of them died under his Chongdao. In this battle, 3 rank SIXs died. Swoosh. After the 3 rank SIXs died, a rank 7 appeared in front of Zichen. A rank 7 was the strongest in this world. It also represented the strongest combat power in this world. Zichen looked at the incoming rank 7. The other party shouted loudly. He held a long sword and charged toward Zichen. Zichen held his saber and rushed forward. The saber and sword collided in front of him. Clanging sounds were heard. Wave after wave of powerful fluctuations spread from the sky. Below, the dark heavenly ants were fighting with the Aborigines. In the sky, Zichen was fighting a rank 7. Paji stood in the distance. These dark heavenly ants were completely under her control. Buzz. Suddenly, the void trembled. The space in front of Paji was distorted. A person walked out from it. When the other party appeared, he stabbed his spear toward Paji. This was a rank 7. He attacked with all his might. Seeing the arrival of a rank 7, Paji's expression didn't change. Although she already felt the terrifying pressure coming from all directions, the powerful spear arrived in front of her, but was blocked by a ray of black light. To be precise, it was caught by a palm emitting black light. In the void, another person appeared. His whole body was shining with black energy. He released a powerful aura. It was Zichen's clone. It was once God's clone. Now, it was called Nether Clone. Nether Clone had also advanced to rank 6 along with his real body. He had been secretly protecting Paji. Boom. The power of the underworld erupted, forming a powerful shockwave that sent the spear-wielding aboriginal flying. The other party looked at Nether Clone in shock. Obviously, he didn't expect Zichen to have such a backup plan. Die. Nether Clone looked at the rank 7 coldly. The brilliance in his hand flashed again. A long sword appeared. This was the stone sword Zichen took out from the abyss. It was unusually sharp. He rushed forward and attacked. Like a flash of black lightning, he swept past the rank 7 in front of him. In the eyes of the rank 7, the moment the black light flew over, his vision became extremely dark. Space seemed to be in a state of static. All the power in his body was suppressed. He couldn't control it. The next moment, the black light disappeared. His vision returned to normal. He slowly lowered his head. He saw a sword mark on his armor. Blood flowed from the mark. Then, his vision turned black again. He lost consciousness. When the Netherworld clone annihilated the rank 7s with one slash, Zichen, who was on the other side, had already killed the rank 7s with his saber. Putting away his sword, Zichen turned around. The Netherworld clone disappeared. They knew they would die. Why did they still come? Looking at Zichen, who was walking back, Paji asked, puzzled. Maybe they want to atone for their sins, Zichen said. Atone for their sins? Paji was puzzled. The battle below was still ongoing. The Aborigines only started to retreat when they suffered great losses and were about to be wiped out. Just like that, Zichen used about a year's time to walk out of the city. During this period of time, the number of rank 6 and rank 7 powerhouses he had killed was as high as hundreds. As for those of other ranks, it was even more innumerable. It could be said that the Aborigines had suffered great losses in this 1 year. Looking at the majestic city in front, Zichen didn't hesitate. He waved his hand and gave the order to attack. The dark, heavenly ants hid underground and started to break the formation. The city protection formation rippled. I won't stop you. Enter the city. Chapter 31:22. On the city wall, there were many terrified Aborigines. There were also some divine race members who were watching the show coldly with their arms crossed. After being oppressed for so many years, the divine race members did not have a good impression of the Aborigines. They could not wait for them to die quickly. Zichen began to give the order to attack the formation. When the city was breached, it would be the time for the Aborigines to be annihilated. The sudden voice caused everyone to be stunned. They were all very puzzled. The city defense formation was their last line of defense. Who was speaking? A beam of light appeared and turned into an elder. He stood in the air and looked at Zichen. I won't stop you. You can enter the city directly. Don't destroy the formation again. If the formation is broken, the rules of this world will change. Zichen looked at the other party with a puzzled face. You have come to the city twice. If I want to stop you, you won't be able to leave. This is a grudge between the two of you. It has nothing to do with me, the guardian of the formation. The elders standing in the air said again. There was an uproar on the city wall. Some of the Aborigines guessed the elder's identity. Zichen was still puzzled. However, he vaguely understood that the other party did not seem to belong to the same camp as the Aborigines. The elder continued, I can open a door for you to let all the dark heavenly ants in. However, you can't break the formation. Zichen looked at the elder and said, You are the formation spirit? You can say so. With a thought, Zichen made all the dark heavenly ants that had sneaked into the ground to attack appear again. Then, they returned to Paji's side. You stay here. I'll go into the city. Zichen turned to look at Paji and said, Be careful, Paji reminded. Zichen walked into the city alone. He did not bring the dark heavenly ant with him. Wherever he passed, countless natives and God clan members stared at him. The Aborigines' faces were filled with fear. However, the divine race members' eyes were filled with fanaticism. The elder who could control the formation came to Zichen's side and said, I witnessed what happened back then with my own eyes. I didn't stop them. When you left twice, I didn't stop you either. What do you plan to do next? You want to stop me now? Zichen said without turning his head. Of course not. I'm just curious about what you'll do. In this year of war, too many of the Aborigines have died. Their overall strength has decreased by a lot. The old man said, But it's still a threat to the Protoss, isn't it? Zichen said calmly. Given the current situation of the Protoss, unless the natives are all dead, the threat will always exist. Even if the natives are all dead, the Protoss may not be able to regain their freedom. Zichen could understand what the old man meant. The natives had been suppressing the Protoss. Although it was wrong, The lack of unity and resistance of the Protoss was also the main reason. You can control the formation? Zichen asked again. Sure. The old man said. It seems that you are the rule of this city. Unfortunately, you haven't done anything all these years. Zichen walked forward. His target was the core of the exchange. If they're wrong, you should punish them. You shouldn't ignore them and cause them to continue making mistakes. The old man replied, the weak are prey to the strong. This is an eternal rule. I used to take action, but the Protoss who came here have their own camps. Gradually, they were not worthy of my action. There was disappointment on the old man's face. Obviously, he was completely disappointed with the Protoss who came here. Zichen believed that the Protoss had a reason, but it was definitely not the main reason. If the awakening altar in the lower level had not been destroyed, they would not have had the power to resist the natives. The Protoss would not have been so weak. As for later, the Protoss who had the power did not resist. Obviously, they saw that they were weak and did not resist. Over time, they had become accustomed to this kind of oppression. What do you plan to do with the natives? The old man asked again. I haven't thought about it yet. How about killing them all? Zichen said. Up to you. The old man said calmly. The law of this world is that the weak are prey to the strong. Now that you are stronger than them, you can do whatever you want with them. The existence of that thing seriously affects the aesthetics. Zichen looked up at the exchange castle and said, That's simple. The old man only said 3 words. The light in the sky fell. The light was like lightning and hit the exchange castle. There was a roar in the city, and the castle collapsed instantly. Powerful fluctuations spread out in all directions, and countless resources fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, the exchange castle and the city disappeared. Only the exchange core remained. Looking at the exchange core, Zichen nodded and said, Yes, it looks much better now. Young man, what do you plan to do? The old man asked again. Zichen turned around and looked at the frightened natives. Now, go back and get the awakening altar. Each family should bring at least 5. If there are enough, you can live. If there are not enough, your family will be destroyed. The frightened natives seemed to see hope. They immediately turned around and ran back to their families. The old man continued, If you want to collect the awakening altar, you can tell me directly. I know where they are. As long as you don't leave the city, the awakening altar will not break. Zichen nodded and said, Okay then. Collect all the awakening altars and protect them. Then, all the Protoss can awaken at will. Also, the exchange core will be open to the Protoss. If you do these 2 things, I will let the natives go. In fact, Zichen did not want to destroy their families. Over the years, the natives had been fighting to the death. They wanted to protect their families from being destroyed. Since they had suffered heavy losses, Zichen did not need to kill them all. The Matrix Genie could control everything in the city. He had the power to supervise. The awakening altar could be sealed with space. The family members brought the awakening altar over. If each family had 5, the big families could gather them. This was also because the Matrix Genie ensured that the awakening altar would not be destroyed. Otherwise, each family would only have 1 left. At this moment, the family leaders walked towards Zichen and handed over their awakening altars. In the crowd of natives, there were 2 inconspicuous people. They were from the St. Louis family. They used to have 2 names. One was Drunkard, and the other was Trash. Now, the drunkard was not drinking. It was unknown if he had run out of money to buy wine. That Trash was no longer the same as before. His face was blank and foolish, and his eyes were flashing with a bright light. He glanced at the drunkard beside him. The drunkard nodded. The guy who was called Trash walked forward. Some people noticed this scene. However, with Zichen here, they did not dare to say anything. Saint Lentoin walked up to Zichen. Only Wang Yiping was there. When he looked at Zichen, he was not afraid at all. The people around turned their heads and watched this scene. Congratulations on your return. Saint Lentoin looked at Zichen and said, Does the promise we made back then still stand? Of course. What do you want? Asked Zichen. Saint Lentoin's face suddenly twisted. There was a ferocious look on his face. I want all the rank 7 warriors of the St. Louis family to die. Chapter 31-23. The conversation between Saint Rentoin and Zichun was extremely short. There were only a few words, but the information revealed shocked everyone. In an instant, the expressions of the remaining rank 7s from the St. Lewin family changed drastically. Why are you doing this? Said a rank 7s from the St. Lewin family. Saint Rentoin turned around and stared at him coldly. Just call me Saint Rentoin, or trash. I can't bear the name Enur. The surroundings were in an uproar. No one expected this to happen. Saint Rentoin was undoubtedly the first native to form an alliance with Zichun. Enur, this is too much of a joke. The family hasn't mistreated you all these years, right? Said the rank 7s from the St. Lewin family again with an ugly smile on his face. Of course we haven't mistreated me. Back then, I risked my life to get the contribution points from Zichun, and all of you took them away. For the past few hundred years, I've been the trash that everyone in the St. Lewin family hates, and my father is a drunkard that everyone despises. The family has treated us father and son extremely well, said Saint Rentoin coldly. This may be a misunderstanding. As the saying goes, jade can't be made into anything without being cut. We're also training your mind, said the rank 7s again. At this time, as long as Saint Rentoin said a word, they could live. So what if they were a little shameless? Saint Rentoin, whose face had become ferocious due to anger, suddenly laughed. He said, You're finally wagging your tails and begging for mercy in front of me like dogs. Actually, after thinking about it carefully, I also think this is a misunderstanding. After all, training one's mind is very important. The rank 7's smile froze, but he didn't dare to get angry. He nodded and smiled. That's right. This is a misunderstanding. Saint Rentoin's smile didn't fade. He said again, Since it's a misunderstanding, then let all the rank 6 from the St. Lewin family die together. What? The rank 7 stared at Saint Rentoin with wide eyes, wondering if he had heard wrong. Saint Rentoin ignored him. Instead, he turned around and looked at Zichun, clearly telling him that this wasn't a joke. Little bastard, you must die. The rank 7 shouted angrily and charged towards Saint Rentoin. Saint Renton stared at him coldly and said, If I die, the house of Saint Renton will be destroyed. Rank 7 paused and glared at him with hatred. Saint Renton said coldly, You killed all the people in the family who could be killed in the name of righteousness. If it was really for the family, I wouldn't blame you. I could even let bygones be bygones and let you live. But your goal is not for your family, but for your own survival. Therefore, in order to strengthen the family, I also ask you to die. Don't worry, I won't forget what you've done for the family. I'll set up a memorial arch for you in the family's ancestral hall. Little bastard, I should have killed you back then. This rank 7's face was full of resentment. Behind him, the old man who had told Saint Rentoin to get lost was also trembling in fury. Zichun looked at the array genie beside him. The formation spirit nodded. Rays of light fell from the sky and landed on the bodies of the rank 7 and rank 6 cultivators. As the array genie, he knew everything that happened in the array. He also knew very well how many rank 7 and rank 6 cultivators the house of Saint Renton still had in the city. Although it was very inappropriate for him to take action, he was still willing to let these people die in exchange for the lives of the natives in the city. As the light fell, all the rank 6 and rank 7 cultivators of the house of Saint Renton were dead. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Saint Rentoin breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he turned to Zichun and said, We agreed that you would elect me as the master of the family. Zichun nodded with a smile and said, Now, you are the master of the house of Saint Renton. Saint Rentoin frowned slightly and said, Isn't this too childish? Zichun smiled and said, No, if you want to be the master of all the forces among the natives, it's also possible. Saint Rentoin's eyes lit up and he said, Can I? I'm only rank 1. Before, I was trash in everyone's eyes. Of course you can. If anyone is unwilling, they must die. Zichun looked back at the natives and said, Does anyone refuse? You are welcome to raise any objections. These people were obviously shrewd. They immediately saluted Saint Rentoin and said, Greetings, master. Hearing these neat and loud voices, Saint Rentoin said with a smile, It's still too childish, but I like it. In this way, only Wang Yiping's Saint Rentoin became the master of all the native forces. He took all the contribution points of the dead rank 6 and rank 7 cultivators. Later, these contribution points would all be exchanged for resources. His deal with Zichun could be said to be the biggest return at the smallest price. This matter would be discussed for many years to come. Saint Rentoin became the master of the family and took over the family. During this period, there were no voices of protest, because as long as Zichun was alive, they would not have the courage to resist. Zichun did not communicate with the other Protoss. He only told Iron Sword that the people of the Nightmare Force could join Iron Sword Force when they arrived. Iron Sword naturally had no objection to this. The other rank 7 Protoss in the city wanted to talk to Zichun through Iron Sword, but Zichun rejected them directly. When he was attacked, these people did not even bother to put up a front. Naturally, he had nothing to talk to them about. Next, he rested in the city and waited for the city to settle down. The Protoss were completely liberated. They could exchange for resources at low prices and awaken their own powers for free. They were extremely grateful to Zichun. Saint Rentoin took control of the family. After everything settled down, he chose to go into seclusion. His realm was too low. Now that Zichun was helping him, no one dared to resist him. Once Zichun left, he would be in a difficult situation without strength. Fortunately, the Saint Rentoin family no longer had rank 6 and rank 7 cultivators. This made it much easier to take control. After Saint Rentoin went into seclusion, his father took over the family for him. With a family to take charge of, his father stopped drinking. Now, as long as one looked up, they could see the ball at the core trading area. All the Protoss could exchange for resources at any time, anywhere. The old man who called himself the spirit of the formation had disappeared, including Iron Sword. No one in the city had seen him before. If Zichun had not appeared this time, he might never have appeared. Now that everything was back on track, the spirit of the formation replaced the rules and controlled everything here. Once someone violated the rules, they would be punished by the rules. Zichun had to comprehend Sword Dao after breaking through his realm, so he had not been idle recently. He stayed in the city alone while Pa Ji led the dark heavenly ant out to fight. Since he had decided to leave, Zichun naturally would not forget the resources here. The resources here were endless. As long as he obtained enough contribution points to exchange, he could bring these resources back to the God Realm. Chapter 31-24. In the past few decades, more and more rank 3 cultivators had come to this level. Some of them were from the Nightmare faction and joined the Iron Sword faction. There were also some who weren't from the Nightmare faction but joined the Iron Sword faction after learning that Zichun was there. More than 4/5 of the people who came to this level would join the Iron Sword faction. This allowed the Iron Sword faction to develop rapidly in just a few decades. Perhaps there weren't many powerful cultivators in this faction, but it wouldn't take long for them to grow. After the crisis in the city was resolved, Heaven Breaker left. Zichun contacted him and told him his idea. Is it difficult? Zichun asked. Heaven Breaker stared at Zichun and said, Of course it's difficult. 100,000 crystals. Zichun didn't wait for Heaven Breaker to finish and said directly, 200,000. 150,000. No. Do you know that one crystal costs 1,000 contribution points? How many contribution points do you need for 150,000? Your contribution points aren't yours, right? You know that they aren't mine. Is there a need to ask for so much? You pick them up for free. What's wrong with me taking some? Pick them up for free? Countless dark, heavenly ants sacrifice their lives for those. What do you mean by pick them up for free? The Ant Queen also needs energy to break through. How can I take all the resources? 150,000. That's it. Seeing that Heaven Breaker was about to say something, Zichun didn't give him a chance to speak and said, You have to consider me. I have a large family to take care of. If you take 150,000 Godly King's soul essences, do you know how many people I can nurture? They'll all be trash. You might as well give them to me. Heaven Breaker's attitude was firm. Zichun said, How about this? As long as you can guarantee that we can return safely, I'll compensate you with some resources next time. Deal. After saying that, Heaven Breaker prepared to leave. Zichen asked, "What are you doing? This place is very special. Otherwise, it wouldn't have trapped Fina. I have to find her and discuss with her." Heaven Breaker turned into a ray of light and disappeared. After watching Heaven Breaker disappear, Zichen returned to the city. He did not look for Su Mingyao and the others. After they had broken through, they would look for him. After returning to the city, Zichen went straight to his residence. Wherever he went, the god race people would look at him with worship in their eyes. The natives, on the other hand, looked at him with awe. After a few decades, the Protoss and the Aborigines once again cooperated. But this time, it was an equal cooperation. It was not like before, when the Protoss were purely oppressed. After returning to his residence, Zichen took out a piece of God King's soul essence and refined it. The Divine King's soul essence played an important role in his rapid rise in cultivation. It was also the greatest resource for breaking through in this world. In fact, this was an ultimate resource that could allow a Divine King to reach the 9th rank in one go. As for how to reach the Divine Realm after reaching the 9th rank, Zichen had no idea. The surface area of the Divine World was boundless, and the number of 9th grade Divine Kings was also boundless. However, only 9 of them were able to reach the Heavenly God Realm. Moreover, there would always only be 9 of them. Only when one of them died would there be someone to replace him. This made Zichen very surprised. If it was a realm that could be exchanged with cultivation, why was it that no one had reached it? What was the secret behind this? Zichen shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was only at the 6th grade now. There was still a long way to go before he reached the 9th grade. It was too early to think about the Heavenly God Realm now. Just as he was about to calm down and refine the God King's soul essence, Zichen heard Tai Jian's voice from outside. Zichen got up. After opening the door, he looked at Tai Jian in surprise. "I'm preparing to break through," Tai Jian said as soon as he entered. After breaking through from the 7th grade to the 8th grade, one would have to leave this world. Obviously, Tai Jian meant that he was going to leave. After reaching the 8th grade, "Where will you go?" Zichen gestured for Tai Jian to sit down. Tai Jian shook his head and said, "I'm not sure, but it's unlikely to be the Divine World." Zichen looked at Tai Jian and said, "Do you want to return to the Divine World?" Tai Jian turned around and looked at him in surprise. Zichen said, "I have a way to break out of this world. There's a high chance that I can return to the Divine World." "What do you mean?" Tai Jian was still confused. "In other words, if I want to leave now, I can break out of this world and return to the Divine World. I don't need to follow the rules of this world." Zichen explained patiently. "How is that possible?" Tai Jian sat up in disbelief. Zichen said, "It's true. Think about it. If you want to return to the Divine World, suppress your realm for now. If you don't want to return to the Divine World, then you can break through and leave. As for the future development of Tai Jian's faction, you can arrange for someone you trust to take care of it." Tai Jian was shocked when he heard this. He had heard of breaking the rules of this world, but he had never encountered it. After all, this was a world created by the heavenly gods. It followed the heavenly gods' rules. If Zichen could really break out of this world without following the rules, wouldn't he have the strength to resist the heavenly gods' rules? Then, he thought of something. Recalling the scene of the arrow piercing through the sky, he felt that it was possible. Therefore, his heart became active. He had been in this world for too long. Naturally, he wanted to return to the Divine World. After giving Zichen a clear answer, Tai Jian left the city and went out to fight. Obviously, he had the same idea as Zichen. After reaching the Divine World, he wanted to leave with a large amount of resources. The city was very quiet. There were no more internal disputes and battles. Therefore, Zichen stayed in the city when he was cultivating. When he was not cultivating, he would go out to fight. However, compared to the Ant Queen, his contribution was pitifully small. With the Ant Queen, his contribution increased every day. The number was very impressive. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years passed. On this day, Su Mingyao and the others came to the city to look for Zichen. Except for a few people who did not break through, the others had all broken through to the 6th level, including the monk and the others. At the same time, they also brought a lot of contribution. Zichun gestured for everyone to go in exchange for resources. It was time to leave. He had to go and find Saint Rentoin. The Saint Rentoin family had always been very quiet. Especially after losing all the 7th and 6th level experts, they were very low-key. Now, the family had been managed by Saint Rentoin's father. It was not bad. Zichun's appearance outside the mansion caused an uproar. The guards at the gate immediately went to report to the family. In a moment, Saint Rentoin's father and some elders quickly came out. They seemed to be in fear and trepidation. They had invited Zichun many times, but Zichun did not come to the mansion. This time, he came uninvited. This made everyone very nervous. I'm here to find Saint Rentoin. Chapter 31-25. Zichun directly explained his intentions. This made the people of the St. Lewin family less panic. Although St. Renton was in seclusion, Zichun had come personally, so he naturally had to come out of seclusion. St. Renton's father brought Zichun to a spacious hall and personally poured him some water. "Sir, please wait for a moment. My son will come out soon," St. Renton's father said respectfully. Zichun nodded and didn't say anything. He tried to be polite earlier, but the other party seemed very panicked, so he stayed silent. A moment later, footsteps sounded. St. Renton had come out of seclusion. Compared to 100 years ago, his realm had skyrocketed. He had directly reached the 4th rank of the king realm. Obviously, he also used the essence of the king of gods. "Sir, you're looking for me?" After entering, St. Renton looked at Zichun. His father had already left the hall. At the same time, he waved his hand, indicating for the people nearby to leave. Zichun indicated for St. Renton to sit first. He glanced outside the hall and said, "I'm going to leave this place." St. Renton studied Zichun. He was very puzzled. It was common knowledge that one could only leave after reaching the 8th rank. Obviously, Zichun hadn't reached the 8th rank yet. Then what did he mean by leaving? Going to other places in this world? If that was the case, there shouldn't be a need to tell him, right? "Leave this world," Zichun said again. St. Renton's mouth was open. He was confused and shocked. "We'll leave soon. Maybe we'll have a chance to come back. Before we leave, I think it's necessary to inform you so that you can be mentally prepared," Zichun said. St. Renton came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. In his original plan, Zichun still had a long time to leave this world. So during this time, he had plenty of time to grow until he had enough power to control the family. He didn't expect Zichun to have a way to leave when he was still at the 6th rank. The city now has its own rules. Things like oppression shouldn't happen anymore. Before I leave, I'll talk to the Matrix Spirit. In times of danger, it'll protect the St. Lewin family. Zichun said, "If nothing unexpected happens, I'll come back here again. It won't take long, but if an accident happens, everything will be hard to say." Hearing this, St. Rentoin nodded and said, "My father should have cleaned up the family over the years. Now, it shouldn't be a problem for the St. Rentoin family to unite as one. I'm just afraid that other forces will deliberately suppress us." Zichun smiled faintly and said, "Then you should be more careful. At worst, you can just keep a low profile. When I return here again, I will solve everything for you." It seems that this is the only way. There's no need to be too deliberate. No one knows that I'm leaving. At most, they'll think that I'm going somewhere to cultivate in seclusion again. In history, no rank 6 martial artist had ever left, so the possibility of an accident happening to the Shengluan family was not high. He told St. Rentoin so that he could be mentally prepared. After that, Zichun left the St. Rentoin family. After that, Zichun took to the air and arrived in the sky. With a flash of light, the formation spirit elder appeared. The two of them chatted for a while. Then, Zichun went to the core trading area and exchanged all the resources he had. After that, Zichun left the city alone to look for Heavenbreaker. Zichun saw Heavenbreaker at Fina's residence. Before he left, he needed to confirm whether he could return. "The coordinates are clear. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll definitely be able to return." These were Heavenbreaker's words. However, it was obvious that he didn't dare to guarantee anything. Seeing the frown on Zichun's face, Fina said, "Heavenbreaker can break through all restrictions. If the coordinates are clear, He'll definitely be able to return here as long as he spends some time. Of course, it'll be the same when he leaves. The coordinates won't change, right? Zichen asked worriedly. Fina smiled and said, "It's a soul body I created. You've seen her before. She's closely connected to the laws of this place. She's as clear and bright as a lighthouse in the mortal world." Zichen nodded and said, "All right then, when can we leave?" Heavenbreaker said, "When you fulfill your promise." Fina smiled and said, "Anytime." "Then let's have everyone come in first." Zichen turned around and walked out of the room. Then, he opened his own world. The sky immediately darkened and space began to distort. A huge black hole appeared. Fina and Heavenbreaker walked out after him. Then, Fina used her soul to transmit messages. One after another, humanoid life forms flew into the sky. In addition to these humanoid life forms, there were also small spaces compressed by spatial techniques. After these small spaces entered Zichen's world, they disappeared. Then, the things in these small spaces appeared. They were mother nests. Their bodies were huge, their auras surged, and there were many of them. There were countless insect eggs in the surroundings. After they appeared, their bodies glowed again, forming a new spatial power that enveloped themselves. These mother nests were hidden in space, but to Zichen, they were naturally no secret. Looking at the countless insect eggs and mother nests, Zichen was shocked. Originally, he thought that Fina was the only mother nest that could produce God King level creatures. Now, it seemed that wasn't the case. There were many mother nests that could produce God King level creatures. "We can't take away all the mother nests in this world. We have to leave some behind to maintain the development of this world." Fina's voice sounded from behind Zichen. "Back then, they didn't know of my existence. If they knew, they would have thought of ways to destroy me. My strength has long reached the point where I can easily destroy that city. However, in order to maintain the balance and stability of this world, I can't take action. I can only hide these methods and hope that I can leave one day." At this moment, Zichen had taken in many experts. The number of experts was much more than the ones that Zichen had nurtured in the Nightmare faction. Compared to the God race, mother nests were the war machines of this world. While those space-time creatures were flying towards Zichen's world, in another place, the Ant Queen also received the news. Then, she led countless dark heavenly ants and flew towards Zichen's world. After all the dark heavenly ants entered the world, Fina also controlled those space-time creatures to enter Zichen's world. Zichen kept the world and went to look for Su Mingyao and the others. After returning to the city, he found Su Mingyao and the others. They had already exchanged all their contribution points. Then, Zichen went to call Taijian, and everyone left together. After returning to the place where the space-time creatures were overseeing, Fina handed over some matters to her spirit body. Then, she entered Zichen's world. Sky Splitter turned into a vast sky and fell into Zichen's hand. During this period, it had devoured 150,000 God King soul essences. Zichen's body flickered with golden light. He pulled open the longbow. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged wildly. Under the attention of many space-time creatures, an arrow was formed and pierced through the sky. The arrow landed in the void. The void trembled and distorted, revealing a passage. Swoosh! Chapter 31:26. This time, Zichen only brought Taijian with him. That was because he was confident that he could return, so he wasn't in a hurry to bring the others away. Taijian and Zichen were on a training trip. Moreover, no one would have guessed that he would leave. Relatively speaking, the St. Louis family didn't have any problems. A passage appeared in the boundless space-time turbulence. A beast and a man walked out of the passage. The beast had a single horn. It walked in front, and wherever it passed, the turbulence made way for it. It was Heavenbreaker. He no longer transformed into a bow. Instead, he returned to his original form. Zichen followed behind him. "You still haven't found it?" Zichen asked. There was a hint of worry in his voice. There was no time field in this space-time turbulence. Zichen and Heavenbreaker walked for an unknown amount of time. Previously, Heavenbreaker had transformed into a bow to cut through the turbulence. After some time, he revealed his true form and used the horn on his forehead to cut through space. We don't have the exact coordinates. We can only walk and see. Heaven Breaker spoke. Another beam of light flew out of his horn and cut through another stretch of space-time turbulence. This time, a complete spatial world appeared at the end of the turbulence. Heaven Breaker's eyes lit up, and he immediately flew forward. Zichen followed behind. Following a flash of light, they arrived in another world. This was an unfamiliar world. The energy between heaven and earth was very thin. With Zichen's current strength, which was equivalent to that of a 6th-rank divine king, he instantly spread out his spiritual sense and easily enveloped this world. There were no humans living in this world. There were only a few strange beasts with extremely low cultivation levels. The space around him and Heaven Breaker was constantly distorting. Ripples spread out. Wherever the ripples passed, mountains and rocks would all be reduced to dust. One after another, cracks appeared in the void, and the world became very unstable. All the strange beasts in this world instantly prostrated themselves on the ground. They continuously kowtowed in the direction of Zichen and Heaven Breaker. It was as if they were kowtowing to a god. This world's level is too low. We have to leave quickly. Another beam of light flew out from Heaven Breaker's horn. That beam of light tore through space, forming a tunnel. Zichen and Heaven Breaker turned into beams of light and entered the tunnel. Their realms were too high. If they continued to stay in this world, it wouldn't be long before this world collapsed. This was because this world was unable to withstand an existence of such a level. The world's laws were also extremely weak, and they could not even achieve the most basic suppression. Leaving the world, he continued to enter the space turbulence to find the next location. With Zichen's current strength, the terrifying spatial turbulence was no longer enough to kill him. He could pass through it at will. Wong. Breaking open another world, Zichen and Heaven Breaker entered. This seemed to be a primitive world. There were still no humans in this world, but there were countless enormous creatures. They looked somewhat similar to the dragon race, but they were clearly not true dragons. In fact, they were not even Western dragons. They could be called dragon beasts. This was an unfamiliar world. The man and the beast did not linger and quickly left. In the following time, they discovered many more worlds. These worlds were all very strange. Some were filled with beasts, while others were filled with oceans. There were all kinds of strange creatures in the oceans that could control water and attack. Zichen had never thought that there would be such worlds in this world. However, these worlds did not seem to belong to the range of life stars, nor were they planets controlled by the God realm. They seemed to have been quietly born in the endless space turbulence. Perhaps in the future, these worlds would give birth to their own rules, causing this world to expand endlessly and give birth to many experts. It was also possible that in the endless years, they would be obliterated and disappear in the space turbulence. After a while, Zichen became more and more confident. This was because the time they spent walking in the space turbulence had become very short. They could break open a new space at any time. In the end, the space turbulence disappeared, and countless spaces appeared in front of them. They were like countless space fragments piled together. Heaven Breaker observed these space fragments and said, "Each space fragment is a complete world. Some may record the past, some may record the present, and some may record the future." Although Zichen had comprehended the power of space, he still did not understand the mysterious space techniques. However, he knew about traveling through space and time. "Which space are we going to now?" asked Zichen. "The God realm you mentioned should be very big, right?" asked Heaven Breaker. Zichen said, "It's vast and boundless. In the eyes of the God race, the God realm is the highest world. The God race of the God realm calls themselves the higher life forms." Heaven Breaker looked at the space fragments in front of them and said, "Then it's in the depths. We will find it soon." "If we go back now, can we still go back?" Zichen asked again. He wanted to make sure if he could go back to his original world through this space fragment. "Of course, because the coordinates are like lighthouses. As long as we pay attention, we can still see it." Heaven Breaker stepped forward. The horn released a beam of light again, and a passage appeared in front of them. Zichen did not have a deep understanding of space, So he did not know that in the present world, only Heavenbreaker could take him to this place and see the countless fragments of space and memories. He could casually enter a fragment and affect the future of that world. He could even change the past. This was something that the 9 heavenly gods of the God realm did not possess. At this moment, Zichun was like a traveler in space. He passed through countless spaces and saw countless scenes. There were people, beasts, all kinds of living beings, battles, breakthroughs, and schemes. As he continued forward, Zichun saw an even larger spatial fragment. There were many scenes in it, and the most common ones were of the god race and creatures from another space. Is this the space? Heavenbreaker came to the front of the space and stared at the image inside. That's right, it's here. Zichun was unable to hide his excitement. Let's go. A beam of light appeared in front of Heavenbreaker again. The beam of light transformed into a passage, and he and Zichun walked into it. After sensing the aura of this world, Zichun said with certainty, "That's right, it's here. We're back." "This is the God realm?" Heavenbreaker said with disdain. "It's far smaller than the previous world. You call this a higher level world? Can we go back to our original world now?" Zichun asked. Heavenbreaker closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened them and said, "It should be fine." In this way, Zichun was completely at ease. Now, he had to find the 10th realm. Chapter 31:27. Whoosh! Zichun's figure appeared. His divine king aura surged and the world seemed to come to a standstill for a moment. The divine envoys who were fighting stopped and looked up at the sky. Their faces were filled with shock. Even the creatures from another space-time that didn't have any intelligence stopped and didn't dare to continue fighting. "Greetings, Your Excellency." Zichun landed and looked at the small team of divine envoys. The divine envoys in the team saluted Zichun in fear. "Which region is this?" Zichun asked. The divine envoys were stunned when they heard this. Zichun pointed at the ground beneath his feet and asked, "Which domain is this?" The small team of divine envoys was at a loss. Seeing that they didn't do it on purpose, Zichun asked again, "Where is this place?" "This is Lord Glenn's territory." The divine envoys in the lead said respectfully, "Lord Glenn is the strongest person in this region. We are all under Lord Glenn's jurisdiction." "Then what is Glenn's cultivation level?" Zichun asked. "He is at the 9th level." The divine envoys said proudly. "Then do you know which region is under Glenn's control in the 10 regions of the divine realm?" "The 10 regions of the divine realm?" The divine envoys' expressions changed again. "What? You haven't heard of it?" Zichun looked at the divine envoys. Their cultivation levels were very low, and they hadn't been in this world for long. Perhaps they didn't know much about the divine realm. "We have heard of it, but the 10 regions of the divine realm disappeared 10,000 years ago." The divine envoy's leader said. "What?" When Zichun heard this, his expression changed. "The 10 regions of the divine realm disappeared 10,000 years ago." The divine envoy's leader said again. Seeing that they didn't seem to be lying, Zichun felt that it was inconceivable. He had only left this world for a little over 1,000 years. It hadn't even been 10,000 years. The 10 regions of the divine realm had been destroyed 10,000 years ago. Could it be that he and Patian had been walking in the space-time turbulence for several thousand years? "Is this the divine realm?" Zichun asked again. The group nodded. Although they were puzzled by the question raised by this lord, they didn't dare to not answer. "Then is there a role of generals and role of kings here?" Zichun asked again. "Yes, 108 divine kings and 1,800 divine generals." The leader of the divine envoys said proudly, "Lord Guluin is one of them." When Zichun heard that, he was already completely speechless. Clearly, with the absence of the heavenly god, the situation of this world had completely changed. Where does Glenn live? Obviously, he couldn't find out anything from these people, so Zichun decided to ask Glenn. If Guluin was an expert on the general board, then he must have been in the divine realm for more than 10,000 years. He must know what happened back then. These oracles pointed to the place where Lord Glenn lived for Zichun. It was a city that was very easy to find and very lively. It was called Galuin City. The formation in the city was not activated, but there were many divine generals in the city. Zichun came to the sky above the city and descended. Who dares trespass on Galuan city? With this shout, one divine general after another soared into the sky, but when they sensed the aura descending from the sky, their expressions changed drastically. An intense pressure appeared in the air and pressed down on the bodies of these divine generals who were in the air. Boom! Their bodies fell to the ground, shattering the stone slabs beneath their feet and kicking up clouds of dust. Everyone in the city looked in this direction with shocked expressions. Where's Glenn? After descending, Zichun scanned the city with his spiritual sense and sent a voice transmission. I'm Glenn. A figure flew out of the city lord's residence. It was a 9th-rank divine general wearing a suit of general armor. Who are you? How dare you trespass on my city? Galuan, who was wearing his general armor, said coldly as he looked at Zichun. Buzz. Zichun's body flashed with light and his aura began to circulate. Divine General Galen only felt a tremendous pressure coming from the opposite side. His body could no longer stand steadily as he collapsed to the ground with a boom. At the same time, his extremely high-grade general armor creaked as though it could be deformed at any moment from the pressure. Glenn paled, his eyes filled with fear. He no longer had any arrogance as he loudly begged for mercy. Your Excellency, spare me. Your Excellency, spare me. Zichun saw the number on Glenn's back, 1,796. With this ranking, he could fight a group of them alone when he left. He really didn't know where Glenn's arrogance came from. The 108 divine generals of the past had now become 1,800. This was too much of a mess. The surrounding divine generals were so frightened that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Just the pressure alone was enough to immobilize a divine general, so they were no match for him. They had long since lost the courage to attack. The pressure on Glenn's body instantly disappeared, and Zichun's voice rang out. Let me ask you a few questions. Answer truthfully. Yes, yes. Your Excellency, please ask away. Glenn, who was lying on the ground, repeatedly nodded. The pressure had disappeared, but he did not stand up. Which domain of the 10 domains of the God realm was this? Zichun asked. Glenn was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect this question, so he said, the 8th domain of the past? The 8th domain, the domain controlled by Western Shell God? Yes. Western Shell God was Sina's father. Back then, Sina had advised him to die and was extremely unfriendly to him. What's the current structure of the God realm like? Are there still 10 domains? Zichun asked again. No, the current divine world is already divided into many forces. Among them, 108 divine kings occupy 108 regions. Other than that, there are also some adopted sons of heavenly gods and the maternal forces of the heavenly gods' children who have opened up their own regions. Glenn said, which factions occupied the 10th domain back then? Zichun asked again. Glenn thought for a moment, then said, it was occupied by many factions. The most famous of them all was the expert on the king rankings, Laurenman. How do we go to the 10th domain now? Are there teleportation arrays? Glenn said, there are, but they are all in the core areas. The teleportation arrays now are not the same as before. They can be opened at any time. The Great War of the God Realm has already caused the God Realm to be torn apart. Teleportation arrays are generally not open to the public. Do you have a map of the God Realm? No. The God Realm is still at war. The various factions are fighting over resources. Our group will gather soon. Aren't you the city lord of this place? Glenn laughed bitterly. Now, all the factions are under the jurisdiction of those powerful God Kings. Those who do not obey have already disappeared from this world. Zichun had expected that the God Realm might be in chaos, but he hadn't expected it to be so chaotic. There were battles everywhere. If the gods returned and saw the God Realm in this state, what would they do? Or rather, if those God Kings dared to wage war on such a large scale and establish their own factions, did it mean that they knew something? That the gods would never return? Chapter 31:28. Zichun asked for the general direction and then used teleportation to leave. He didn't go to the core cities to find the teleportation portals. After countless years of war, the teleportation portals should have been destroyed. The Divine Realm had spent countless years to construct the 10 regions, and it was like a huge net that could be connected at any time through spider silk. However, it had been completely destroyed just like that. The 10 domains were like a plate of loose sand. The God world was infinitely large. Even Heavenbreaker admitted that. Even though Zichen could teleport hundreds of thousands of miles, it would take a long time to reach the 10th domain from here. During this time, he saw many battles. Some were between the God race and the other space-time, and some were between the God race. In short, the God race was in chaos. In the end, Zichen called out Heavenbreaker and directly broke through space. This was even faster than teleportation. The horn on Heavenbreaker's forehead released a beam of light. The light fell into the void and became a tunnel. Zichen followed Heavenbreaker into it. Just like that, he deliberately let Heavenbreaker control the distance and try to move within a small range. Otherwise, they would instantly leave this world. When he estimated that he had reached the 10th domain, Zichen started to teleport again and again, trying to find some familiar cities. However, he was disappointed. The 10th domain had changed greatly. He couldn't recognize it at all. Moreover, this single domain was extremely large. Zichen then asked some God race members, but no one knew where the goddess was. After that, Zichen returned to the world and told everyone what had happened. When they heard, they were shocked and worried. Although Wuji and the craftsman ancestor were there, they definitely wouldn't rely on those factions. The flames of war were burning in the God world. He didn't believe that the factions from the Life Stars would be spared. But the problem is that we can't find the way back. Zichen said helplessly, there are no buildings that we are familiar with, and there are no teleportation portals that we can use. Although we are probably in the 10th domain, the 10th domain is still limitless. We have been searching for a long time, but there is still no clue. Find Divine King Sandini. He's definitely still alive. Find the city he's in, and we can find the way back. Li Ai, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Apart from Taijian, Martin, and the others, everyone's eyes lit up. Obviously, this was a good idea. And the reason why Li Ai immediately thought of Sandini was because he had almost killed her before. Now that he had a direction, everything else became much simpler. It didn't take long for Zichen to find out where Sacred King Sandini was. Not only had he not died in the chaos, he had even become an overlord. After asking around again, Zichen discovered that the area controlled by Sacred King Sandini was precisely the area where Zichen had once been. Zichen immediately set off. After teleporting again and again, he circled around Sacred King Zenith City. Finally, he saw some familiar places. They were all dilapidated cities whose cores had long been destroyed. A few days later, Zichen saw Tobi City. It was a city that they had once developed, but it had long since been destroyed. Then, he saw the cities of Yue, Bin Senlu, and the others. Naturally, all of them had been destroyed. The cities were in ruins, and there were no signs of life. The glory of the past was gone. After arriving here, he had the exact coordinates. Zichen teleported again, heading towards the place where they lived. He had only developed 2 cities. In these 2 cities, there were ancient tree kings overseeing them. Ordinary enemies couldn't do anything to them. However, Zichen didn't have any confidence that they could survive in the chaos. Zichen was very nervous, and so were the others. This was because their friends were here, their roots in this world. After teleporting again and again, they finally arrived at the area that was supposed to be lush with ancient trees. However, it was empty in front of them. The wind blew, and yellow sand flew into the sky. This place had become a desert. The ground was full of potholes, and the traces of a great battle were extremely obvious. Wherever his spiritual sense passed, there was no vegetation, not even creatures from another dimension. Zichen's heart sank to the bottom. His figure flashed again, and he arrived at the center of the battlefield. There was a city there. There were some scattered buildings in the city, but the buildings had long been destroyed. In the center of the city, there was a towering ancient tree that had lost its core. That was Jono's original body. Obviously, Jono was dead. There were no living creatures in the city. Zichun scanned with his spiritual sense and found nothing else. The teleportation array in the city had long disappeared. With a flash of light, Monk and the others walked out. When they saw everything around them clearly, they were stunned. Then, sadness began to spread. Did everyone die in the battle? Martin and the others looked at the ruined surroundings and could guess what had happened. They were silent. "We still have one more city," Su Mingyao said. "Let's go and take a look." Under Zichen's lead, the group set off for the second city. Soon, they arrived and saw that it was still a ruined city. In the center of the city, the ancient tree that could also become a king was also dead. "How could this be?" Monk roared angrily. "Which damn guy dared to attack us?" In addition to anger, there was also helplessness. "They can't all be dead," Zichen said in a low voice. "Those misty shadows and giant crocodiles should still be alive. Moreover, the craftsman ancestor and the others have experienced many wars. It's impossible that they didn't take precautions." The others turned to look at Zichen. Their despairing hearts were rekindled with hope. "Let's find a way to go to the Life Star. The flames of war can't have spread there. Perhaps they have retreated to the Life Star," Zichen said. This undoubtedly gave them hope. However, it was easier said than done to return to the Life Star. The entire divine world was in chaos. The passages had either disappeared or closed. They couldn't go back to the city that connected to the divine world. Su Mingyao said, "Even if they went back, they should have left some people to guard this place or leave some clues for us. Then let's go back and take a look." The group returned to the dilapidated city. Then, they stayed here and patiently looked for clues that they could leave behind. Time passed day after day. Their patience was worn out. They were full of worries. On a full moon night, moonlight shone, illuminating the world. The surroundings were quiet. Zichen sat cross-legged in the ruined city. He couldn't calm down. The sand outside the city gradually became moist. Then, a thin layer of water vapor rose, turning into a layer of mist. The mist was very thin and lingering. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice it. However, Zichen had been paying attention to the surroundings. Thus, the moment the mist appeared, he noticed it and teleported in front of it. It wasn't normal for mist to rise in a dry desert. Zichen's arrival seemed to have stirred up the mist. The mist dispersed and slowly disappeared. "It's me. I'm back," Zichen spoke. His rule energy appeared beside him, falling into the mist. Then, it forcibly gathered the mist into a humanoid creature. Chapter 31:29. Looking at the misty figure, Zichen heaved a sigh of relief. However, when the misty figure saw him, he didn't seem happy. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. Swoosh! The light of laws around Zichen disappeared. Without the suppression of laws, the misty figure disappeared. As soon as the misty figure disappeared, Tyrant and the others arrived and asked what happened. "I saw the misty figure," Zichen said with a smile. Although it was an unfamiliar misty figure, he still felt a sense of familiarity. The others, who had been tense, also relaxed at this moment. Next, they just had to wait. Wind appeared in the surroundings. There was mist in the wind. It came from all directions and gradually surrounded the place. Looking at the mist, Zichen's rule power appeared once again. The mist quickly took shape and took the shape of a human. "Lord, it's really you." In front of the humanoid figure stood a tall existence. It was the king of the misty figure. When he saw Zichen, he was very excited. Zichen nodded at the misty figure and said, "How are the others?" The misty figure said excitedly, "Everyone is fine. 10,000 years. We have waited for 10,000 years. Lord has finally returned." Just as the misty figure was speaking, in another direction outside the city, a space suddenly opened and formed a passage. Someone walked out of the passage. The first to walk out was LV Peng. Then, Wuji, the craftsman, and those who had stayed back then. Seeing that everyone was unharmed, Zichen let out a sigh of relief. He immediately walked forward and gave LV Peng a hug. "You're finally back." After seeing everyone, LV Peng was incomparably excited. Seeing this place turned into ruins gave us a fright. "What happened back then?" Zichen asked. After you left, the divine world fell into chaos. We weren't spared. At first, there were aristocratic families who came to recruit us. We didn't agree. In the end, the divine king came to recruit us. We knew something was wrong, so we made preparations in advance. LV Pong gave a brief account of what had happened that year. Although it was simple, everyone could still feel the danger involved. Just as they were done with their preparations, the battle broke out. Their opponents had come unexpectedly, and their scale was much larger than when the heaven god's children had come. After a simple battle, LV Pong and the rest all retreated. During this period of time, they had completely given up on the ancient trees in the periphery. The misty shadow and giant crocodile had left after the initial battle, and the mother nest had deliberately suffered huge losses. This was all for the sake of everyone's survival. LV Pong had destroyed the teleport formation leading to the Life Star. Next, Jono controlled the battle to continue until countless ancient trees were killed and the tree hearts were dug out. This battle lasted for about 100 years. Their opponents seemed to have the intention of using them to refine weapons. In the end, they killed their way into the city. At that time, Jono's real body had already left, leaving behind only a clone. When the enemy tried to control it, it chose to destroy its soul. Thus, their opponents took the spirit fruit and the Tree King's heart. From then on, LV Pong and the rest had been hiding until today. During this time, LV Pong would send the Misty Shadow to investigate. Because he was worried that the enemy would find out, he would only appear on the night of the full moon. "What's everyone's current realm?" asked Zichun. "The highest is 9th level general. We've been hiding and haven't shown ourselves. We don't have many resources left," said LV Pong. "It doesn't matter. I have many resources here. Do you know which faction attacked you?" "It was God King Zack, but I've already heard that he's under God King Sandini's jurisdiction. Our territory has always been under the control of God King Zenith." Hearing this, Zichun frowned and said, "So it was Sandro who destroyed us." "You could say that." Also, when the two sides were fighting, God King Sandini's side also sent many creatures from another space-time. "We suspect that they also control the mother nest," guessed LV Pong. Hearing this, Zichun's lips curled into a faint smile. "There's no need to worry. I'm just afraid that they don't have the goods. Since everyone is safe, let's call them out. We're going to rebuild the sect." "But—" LV Pong looked at Zichun with some hesitation. "Since we're back, you don't have to worry anymore. God King Sandini, right? Let's settle our old grudges together." Zichun said, "Have Vini and Jono been accumulating energy these past few years?" "They have. We've been waiting for this day." LV Pong nodded. Zichun laughed heartily when he heard this. "That's great. Let everyone come out and use our original place. How we were destroyed in the past will rise again now." LV Pong and Zichun had known each other for a long time and knew Zichun's character. Since he said so, he naturally had confidence. LV Pong didn't say anything else and opened the space again to let everyone out. These people had been staying in a unique space all this time. When they heard LV Pong's voice, they saw Zichun's group in the crowd. In an instant, all kinds of excited exclamations sounded. Lena and the other divines bowed to Ichien, excitedly calling her goddess. The others came forward and greeted Zichun. Jono turned into a ray of light and came to Zichun's side. He smiled and said, "You're finally back." Zichun smiled and replied, "There were some problems. You can recover now." Xiaonua said, "Is it here?" Zichun nodded. "Good." Jono turned into a ray of light and flew into the withered tree in the city. After his soul went in, the withered tree began to emit a green light. The originally lifeless dead tree immediately became full of vitality. Spring came to a withered tree. Everyone turned their heads and looked at this scene in surprise. Zichun looked at Jono and said, "Recover to your peak state first and establish a city." "Yes." Jono began to grow. Green vegetation replaced the old bark, and countless branches and leaves grew out. It continued to rise and extend until it became a city of trees. Looking at this city of trees, many people shed tears of excitement. It's been 10,000 years since the city was destroyed. After 10,000 years of waiting, this day had finally come. Continue to develop There's no need to be afraid, Zichun said in a deep voice. Buzz. Chapter 31:30. While Jono was growing, Zichun looked back at Vigny and said, Vigny, you go too. Develop as you wish. Vigny nodded and turned into a ray of light, flying above Jono. The next moment, space opened one after another, and countless creatures from another space-time surged out like a flood. The ground in the distance was constantly shaking. Jono, who had reached level 9, not only developed more ancient trees, but his level was also extremely high. At present, Jono had already far surpassed the ancient tree king that Zichun had killed before. The city was quickly completed, and tree houses appeared one after another. This place had become a city of trees. Everyone looked at this scene excitedly. Zichun looked at the Misty King in the other direction. His figure flashed and disappeared from this place. The next moment, a thick fog appeared in the forest. The ground became extremely slippery, and it could turn into a swamp at any time. The giant crocodiles were hiding in the swamp. The Misty King and the giant crocodiles were of a very high level, but to the current Zichun, they were much weaker. After everything in the city stabilized, Zichun stepped forward and waved his sleeve. Pieces of superm crystal appeared and flew into the sky. Zichun said, Vigny, Jono, you two refine the superm crystal. These superm crystal were obtained by Zichun when he formed an alliance with Carrie's forces on the first floor. There were a lot of them, but after reaching level 3, he had not used them. He had been using the high-level God King's soul essences. Now that they were all level 9, it was best to use the superm crystal. If they used the God King's soul essences now, it would be extremely tiring. At the same time, the Misty King in the outside world flew back. Zichun also gave him a lot of superm crystal. The others can collect their superm crystal later. Zichun looked up at the sky and said, Vigny, get those creatures out of the forest. Vigny didn't understand what Zichun meant, but he still did as he was told. All the space-time creatures flew towards the outside world. Just as these space-time creatures came out, Zichun opened the world. The city that had been illuminated by the tree houses and Jono's light was now plunged into darkness once more. The auras of God Kings emerged from the darkness one after another. When everyone saw what the thing in the darkness was, their faces were filled with shock. There were countless black ants. Most importantly, all of them were God Kings. Heavens! Countless God Kings! Cries of alarm continuously sounded out, and those who had been quite confused now understood why Zichun dared to rebuild the city and why he did not fear those factions. With so many divine king-level black ants here, even if another great battle broke out, this would be a city that could never be conquered. Where did you find them? Aren't they too powerful? LV Peng exclaimed. Beside him, Wuji, Craftsman, and the others were also extremely shocked. Due to the lack of resources, they had completely widened the gap between them and Zichun. In fact, the level of any random black ant was higher than everyone here. Everyone was extremely shocked, and they became even more excited. The number of dark heavenly ants was beyond their expectations. There was an endless stream of them. After the dark heavenly ants appeared, they took the initiative to walk out of the city. They formed a group like a well-trained army, and they consciously left the city. Then, they walked into the forest without destroying the ancient trees and walked out of the forest. Even so, the dark heavenly ants in the city were still full, as though there would never be an end to them. Swoosh! With a flash of brilliance, Pa Ji appeared next to Zichun. Zichun looked at Pa Ji and said, Tell the queen ant that she can leave her original body in the city. As for the location, she can choose for herself. Pa Ji nodded and communicated with the queen ant. With a flash of brilliance, the queen ant's original body appeared. It was a huge creature. After it appeared, it glanced at Zichun, then glanced at the surroundings. Its figure flashed once more as it headed underground. I want to go to the underground space. There's a slight obstruction. The queen ant's voice rang in Zichun's mind. Jono, make way. Zichun hurriedly transmitted his voice. Jono was only a level 9 general. He couldn't withstand the queen ant's torment. The queen ant might destroy Jono's vitality in an instant. By then, Zichun wouldn't even have a place to cry. Jono's rhizomes covered the underground like a spider web, forming a rule barrier that could prevent the enemy from attacking from underground. At the same time, there was also a rule barrier in the air. However, this level of obstruction was nothing to the queen ant. Therefore, the rhizomes immediately withdrew. A loophole appeared in the rule, and the queen ant entered the depths of the underground through the loophole. Then, it formed a space of its own. An endless stream of dark heavenly ants finally appeared from Zichen's world. The city became bright again, and all the dark heavenly ants walked towards the forest outside the city. Jono sensed that these dark heavenly ants didn't stay in the forest. Instead, they left the forest and disappeared from the outside world, sneaking into the underground. As the others couldn't see what was happening outside, they didn't feel anything unusual. However, Jono was very puzzled. Originally, he thought that the reason why Vigny's subordinates left the forest was to make these black ants stay. Now, it seemed like that wasn't the case. Just as Jono was filled with doubts, he saw that Zichen's world didn't close. Other creatures appeared from within. These creatures were very similar to the creatures from the alternate space-time that Vigny had created previously. However, their levels were very high. Each of them was at the God King realm. There were even more of these creatures from the alternate space-time. Hints, exclamations sounded again. What are these? Mother nests? The craftsman asked.
Yes.
Zichun nodded. But as long as the creatures from the alternate space-time nurtured by the mother nests reach the general realm, won't they become members of the divine race? These are already God Kings. Why are they still in this state? The craftsman was very puzzled. Zichun shook his head and said, I'm not sure either. They should be a higher-level life form. Not a higher-level life form. It's the highest-level intelligent life form. Did you bring it back to the mother nests? Vigny's voice sounded in Zichen's mind. He seemed very excited. At that moment, Fina appeared beside Zichun. She looked around and saw the tree city. A hint of surprise flashed across her eyes. Then, her gaze landed on Jono and she said, Not bad. It's just that your realm is a little too low. Then, her gaze moved again. Her gaze seemed to have penetrated countless spaces and landed on Vigny. She was even more surprised. I didn't expect you to have such a thing. Can you help it? Zichun asked. This was Vigny's request. At this moment, he was very excited. However, he didn't dare to speak to Fina directly. This was because in his eyes, Fina was like an ordinary person seeing a king. The difference in status between the two was too great. No problem. Fina nodded and said, You give me the resources, and I'll give you the method. It won't take long for it to awaken and ascend. Chapter 31:31. Leave. Fina turned to Zichun and said, That's not what we agreed on back then. I said I would fight for you. You don't have to do that. You agreed to help Vigny. That's the greatest help you can give me, Zichun said. Fina tilted her head and looked at Zichun. She blinked and said, You don't dislike me, do you? How is that possible? Zichun emphasized. For someone like Fina, he wouldn't be able to get her even if he begged her. How could he dislike her? Since that's the case, then it's settled. I'll go outside and take a look. My subordinates will stay here and listen to your orders. If you're in danger, I'll appear, Fina said. Is that okay? Zichun didn't want to force Fina to stay by his side and work for him just because he was the one who brought her out. He knew very well that Fina would be very useful if she stayed by his side. That was because she represented an endless army of divine kings. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you chase it away, it won't leave. Heavenbreaker walked out of Zichun's world. Boring. Can't you just let me talk? Let's go. A ray of light appeared from Fina's body. This ray of light flew to where Vigny was hiding. Before Vigny could get hold of this ray of light, Fina's figure had already disappeared. I'm sleepy. Don't disturb me if there's nothing, Heavenbreaker said, and walked into a wooden house. He was very casual, as if he was in his own home. The others still hadn't recovered from their shock. This time, Zichun returned. Not only did he become stronger, but he also brought so many powerful existences with him. With such battle strength, He indeed had the qualifications to settle down and start anew. These powerful space-time creatures all hid in the forest. Zichen turned around to look at the excited crowd and said, "All right, the next level is level 9. Come to me to collect resources and try to break through to the God King realm as soon as possible." Zichen brought back a lot of resources this time, and these resources were specially prepared for everyone. Can the teleport formation connect to life stars? Zichen looked at LV Pong and asked. LV Pong nodded and said, "Yes, I only destroyed the teleportation array on one of the nodes. It won't take long for it to be restored." Zichen said, "Then let's begin. From now on, we will be taking root here." Regardless of whether Heaven God could return or not, Zichen now had the strength to protect himself. He no longer had to live a life of caution, worrying about all sorts of schemes and invasions. It could be said that this time, he had truly taken root in the God world. He now had a foundation and the power to dominate. After that, Zichen distributed Supreme Crystal to all level 9 Divine Generals so that they could cultivate and break through. In one night, a city of trees appeared. The desert turned into a forest, and the ancient trees in the forest were so lush that they covered the sky. Zichen and the others were in this city, but they did not feel anything strange. However, the others in this area felt a surge of energy between heaven and earth. It could be said that for the entire night, the energy between heaven and earth was turbulent, as if some sort of rare treasure had appeared. In this area, all the God Race members noticed the abnormality in the sky. They all guessed that a rare treasure had appeared. That night, many God Race members set off in that direction. They did not see the rare treasure, but they saw countless space-time creatures and an oasis in the desert. Some God Race members were puzzled, but even more were shocked. They remembered that many years ago, there was a popular faction here. It was said that it was founded by a son of God. That faction was besieged by other sons of God, but they won every time. It was not until 10,000 years ago, when the Son of God left, that the faction was destroyed. But now, it seemed that the faction had recovered, and in a single night. It was shocking. There were also some who had a clearer understanding of what had happened 10,000 years ago. Besides being shocked, they were also excited. This was because the oases here were all opportunities. All of the ancient trees had tree hearts. That was an extraordinary opportunity. Therefore, they quickly retreated, wanting to tell His Excellency about this. The leader of the faction that had destroyed all the ancient trees was called Zack. Back then, he was a level 5 God King. Now, he was a level 6 God King. Of course, he would not do it himself. Everything was done by his subordinates. His direct superior was none other than Sacred King Sandini. As the son of God, Sandini had long since reached the level 9 God King realm. Now, he was one of the 108 God Kings. That day, Zack heard the report from his subordinates. He was surprised that the desert had turned into an oasis, but he did not care. Although there were some opportunities there, he did not care about them at all. He refused the request to investigate personally. With a wave of his hand, he casually arranged for a level 1 God King to lead people to destroy the oasis. Zichen's faction had recovered, but before he could take revenge, the enemy had come. On the third day of his expansion, a God Race army and some space-time creatures arrived outside his territory. They attacked the space-time creatures on the periphery. When he heard this, Zichen's lips curled into a cold smile. "I haven't come looking for you, but you've come knocking on my door. Then let's start here." He did not give an order to the Queen Ant. He only gave some instructions to the space-time creatures brought by Fina. After that, he did not say anything else. Now, Zichen could guarantee that this was a city that would never be conquered. The powerhouse leading the team this time was a level 1 God King called Mars. He knew this area well. He had participated in the destruction of this place. He was interested in the opportunities that Lord Zack did not care about because these tree hearts were different. If there were enough of them, he could go to the core city and exchange them for opportunities for God Kings. He led the team here, and when he saw the boundless forest, there was an obvious change in his eyes. His mood became excited. Looking at this boundless sea of trees, he seemed to see his own path of advancement. "Kill!" He waved his hand and shouted. The powerhouses and space-time creatures he brought charged forward and clashed with Zi-Chin's space-time creatures. In the air, Wang Yiping's Mars led a group of level 9 divine generals and headed straight for the forest. Before the army reached here, he could not wait to get more tree hearts. However, as soon as he approached the ancient forest, he felt a dangerous aura. This caused him to stop abruptly and look down in shock. The level 9 divine generals who came with him also stopped and looked ahead in surprise. Space-time creatures rushed out. There were only 2 of them. Their nervous mood instantly relaxed. It was common knowledge that space-time creatures were all below divine messengers. Chapter 31-32. The 2 space-time creatures that rushed out were Wang Yiping's level, which was equivalent to a godly king in this world. They rushed forward, fought, and devoured. The battle ended quickly. Although they were both at the same level, the space-time creatures had a stronger grasp of the laws. Hence, they were much stronger than a godly king of the same level. This was because the godly kings in this world had yet to awaken. The rank 9 in Mars became the food of the 2 space-time creatures. After devouring them, they returned to the Sea of Trees. The battle in the distance was still going on. Someone noticed that their leader was killed and exclaimed in fear. Without a leader, the battle became one-sided. These people could not win and could only run. The thick fog rolled and the misty shadow came to the battlefield and reaped the lives of these gods. The desert turned into a swamp. Bubbles bubbled and soil splashed everywhere. Giant crocodiles rushed out from below and killed the space-time creatures one after another. This battle lasted for a long time. More than 90% of the enemies were killed. The remaining 10% of the gods fled in fear. The space-time creatures that came were all killed. This was only the first battle. Zi-Chin did not want to kill them all. Moreover, a battle of this level would not help the dark heavenly ant or Fina's space-time creatures to grow. He planned to wait a little longer. Zack soon received news about the battle. Mars was killed in an instant. This made his face turn ugly. Although the other party was one of the commanders under him, who was not considered important, he was still a godly king. How could he be killed in an instant? Seems like they came prepared. Zack snorted and said, "Ask Pitway to lead a team. If the other party is really capable, remember to recruit them and use them for us." The god who passed on the message answered and left. Compared to Mars, who was insignificant, Pitway was Zack's right-hand man. This was because he was a level 5 godly king. In other regions, this level was enough to be the overlord of a force. The number of troops that Pitway could control was dozens, or even hundreds of times more than the dead Mars. He led an army of otherworldly creatures, a divine race army, and several god kings to Zi-Chin's location. There had been a great battle here before, but there were no corpses left. Pete did not care about this at all, because creatures from another dimension were very good at cleaning up. "Sir, what should we do now?" a god king asked as he looked at the sea of trees on the horizon. "Let's start the war directly. When they can't hold on any longer, they will naturally come out and ask for peace. At that time, we will have the real initiative. If we directly go up and recruit them, we will be very passive, and we will also mistakenly think that we are very strong." With these words, the army began to march forward. Countless creatures from the other space-time charged forward, slamming into the other space-time creatures. "Let these cannon fodders fight first. Our people will fight later," Peter said indifferently. He did not step forward. Just like that, he sat down with these god kings and drank with their subordinates. There was a battle at the front and a drinking party at the back. The atmosphere was clearly different. The other Shin clan troops also stayed in the rear and did not join the battle. The number of space-time creatures was endless, so they were cannon fodders. No matter how many of them died, it would not hurt. But these Shun clan troops could not. Although their combat strength was tyrannical, to cultivate one, it would take countless years. They were elite troops and could not be wasted like this. In fact, in the depths of Peter's heart, he did not want to have these elite troops. He preferred the space-time creatures. They were cannon fodders, endless in numbers. This way, the battle would be enjoyable. They were like machines born for war. Sometimes, Peter would mutter in his heart, It was so troublesome for the Shin clan to cultivate powerhouses. How could they be on par with the space-time creatures? They had such war machines. Once they went all out, he believed that they would have destroyed the Shin clan and ruled the heavenly realm. After all, in these years, the forces with the Mother Nest had all won. When Peter was drinking with his subordinates outside the battlefield, Zichun had already received the news. He was drinking with Monk and the others. For this battle, he was not in a hurry, because he did not lack resources for the time being. He had just returned, so he let everyone rest and adapt for a period of time. So this battle, under the situation where the leaders of both sides were not in a hurry, lasted for a month. In this month, the space-time creatures were involved in the battle. Both sides had suffered countless casualties. Finishing the last mouthful of wine in the wine pot, Peter stood up and looked at the battle of cannon fodders in front of him. His eyes immediately became sharp. It seems that they will not shed tears until they see the coffin. Everyone, attack. Advance into the dense forest and destroy all the ancient trees. Peter's aura surged. The aura of a level 5 divine king caused the world to lose its color. Kill. There was a loud shout. The Shun clan members who had not participated in the battle since they arrived, charged forward. They were like a sharp blade, cutting the torrent formed by the space-time creatures, and went deep into the forest. At the same time, Peter moved forward from the sky and flew directly into the ancient forest. I'll go and drag their leader out. He flashed directly into the forest. During this time, his powerful aura surged. The ancient trees did not dare to attack him. After more than 10 miles, a light appeared in front of Peter, blocking his way. Seeing the figure in the light, Peter was stunned. It was a half-human, half-beast. He looked extremely ugly, but the aura on his body was very strong. He was a level 5 divine king. His expression changed slightly. There was a bad feeling in his heart. Whoosh! The half-human, half-beast rushed towards him, and a powerful force surged out. Peter shouted angrily. A light flashed in his hand, and a long sword appeared. He slashed at the half-human, half-beast's neck. A strange power of rules appeared from the half-human, half-beast's body. It seemed to form a defense, blocking the attack. Boom! At the same time, the half-human, half-beast threw a punch, accompanied by a roar of energy. Peter was sent flying backward. Flying backward and coughing up blood, Peter was shocked. He did not expect the opponent to be so strong. A hint of fear appeared in his heart. He had an impulse to turn around and run. Suddenly, a shrill scream sounded behind him. Hearing that it was the voice of his subordinate, his expression changed again. Whoosh! The half-human, half-beast, who was also a level 5 divine king, attacked Peter again. Chapter 31-33. A grade 5 against a grade 5. One had awakened the laws while the other had not. Even though Pete had rich combat experience, the difference in combat strength was still an insurmountable gap. The battle ended quickly. Pete fell into a pool of blood, and his corpse was quickly devoured by the creatures from the alternate dimension. On the ground where the battle took place, huge holes appeared one after another. The creatures from the alternate dimension fell into the holes. The dark heavenly ants were waiting for them at the bottom of the holes. The divine tribe elite troops sensed something amiss and chose to retreat. Misty Shadow and Giant Crocodile chased after them while a dark heavenly ant circled behind them. When they charged out and saw the black mass of dark heavenly ants in front of them, and every one of them was at the divine king realm, they were in complete despair. The battle that lasted for a month had ended. The troops that Pete brought were completely annihilated. In the city, Zichun put down his wine cup as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. He did not have the ambition to rule the divine world, but he had to take revenge for the annihilation back then. Divine King Zack was enraged when he heard the news. The loss of Pete this time had hurt him deeply. Damn guy, I'm going to meet him personally. Bring the left and right team with me. Zack decided to make a trip there personally. The left team was a king's team. They were all made up of first-level divine kings. He had nurtured them for many years. The right team was an assassination team. They were also made up of divine kings, but they were the best of the best. They were few in number and specialized in assassination. Other than the left and right teams, he had many elite troops such as the Divine General Army, Divine Tribe Army, Ordinary Divine Messengers, and the creatures from the alternate dimension. For the gathering of the army, Zack mobilized more than 60% of his troops. The rest continued to guard the city. The army advanced in a straight line. After a few days, they arrived outside the forest. Zack looked ahead with a cold glint in his eyes. "Who's the leader here? Show yourself." His voice was like thunder. It reverberated in the wilderness and entered the forest. Zichen, who was sitting with Monk and the rest, stood up and turned to look outside the forest. Swoosh! In the next moment, his figure disappeared. Tyrant and the others also flew toward the outside world. This was their first battle after returning to this world. At the same time, it was also the signal for them to start a war of revenge. His voice reverberated in all directions as a powerful godly king's aura descended. The creatures from the alternate space-time below could not move at all. Glancing at those cannon fodders, Zack's eyes were filled with disdain. He could kill countless of these cannon fodders, but he was more concerned about the experts of this force. A ray of light appeared in front of him, and the light transformed into Zichen. Behind Zichen, Tyrant and the others appeared. "You're the leader here?" Zack stared at Zichen and frowned. "That's right," Zichen lightly said. His aura was in a restrained state, so Zack could not sense it. At the same time, Monk and the others behind had deliberately suppressed their auras because they had reawakened their laws. Zack, who had yet to awaken, couldn't sense them. "You've got guts. You dare to attack our people?" Seeing that the other party was acting strangely, Zack still didn't give in. "Your backer should be Sandra, right?" Zichen lightly said. "How dare you disrespect an expert on the king ranking?" Zack angrily shouted. Zichen's lips curled into a disdainful smile. "There were only 36 experts on the king ranking back then, and I didn't see him ranked on it. Back then, you must have received Sandra's order to destroy us, right?" Seeing that Zack was about to say something, Zichen said, "There's no need to deliberately explain. I'm just telling you. It doesn't matter. A life for a life. Not only will you die, but your force will also be destroyed. After you die, it will be Sandra's turn." Zack narrowed his eyes and stared at Zichen. He coldly said, "With just you? Turn around and look behind you," Zichen said with a smile. Zack's face revealed a hint of mockery. "Do you think I'm an idiot? You dare to show off this trick in front of me? When this lord uses this kind of trick..." Zichen's expression became even more disdainful and full of ridicule. Before Zack could finish his words, cries of alarm rang out from all around. Zack subconsciously turned around and saw that many black ants had appeared in the distance. These ants had completely surrounded the army he had brought with him. After sensing the aura of these black ants, his pupils suddenly shrank and his expression changed greatly. "Godly kings!" Zack involuntarily cried out in alarm. He turned to look at Zichen again, his eyes filled with disbelief. Those countless black ants were actually godly kings, and not just at the first level. At this moment, a chill appeared in his heart. He was secretly angry that he had rashly come here. The other party was hiding such a powerful force. Their losses would definitely be great. Now he finally understood why Peter's army had been completely wiped out. You only have one chance to live. Let's see if you can grasp it. Just as Zack was shocked and thinking about how to minimize his losses, he heard Zichen speak again. A long saber appeared in his hand. The long saber was black and had a scabbard. "If you can survive my attack, I'll let you live," Zichen said. "Oomph." Zack snorted coldly. His face was filled with anger. He felt that he was being looked down upon because his opponent was only at the 6th level. They were at the same level, but he dared to boast so shamelessly. Zichen looked at him and smiled. Light circulated around his body. The aura of a 6th-level godly king was completely released. There was another name for this level. It was called the 6th level. Whoosh! He charged forward. Light circulated around his body. Other than the yin-yang light, there was also the radiance of the lightning body. Zack felt a powerful aura coming from the opposite side. It was as if a peerless beast was pouncing on him. This aura made him feel an endless chill. His expression changed drastically. He immediately mobilized all the energy in his body to form a defense. The long saber was unsheathed. A cold light flashed. When the light faded, Zichun was behind Zack. The long saber was already back in its scabbard. Zack stood behind Zichun. His expression was frozen. The light that was released from his body gradually faded away. There was a diagonal cut on his body. His eyes were wide open and filled with horror. His soul aura was dissipating. The surroundings were silent. Everyone looked at the scene in shock. A 6th-level godly king was killed just like that? How was this possible? They were at the same level. How could he be defeated in one move? Zichun's gaze swept across the surroundings. The eyes of the gods were filled with fear. He waved his hand and said, "Do it. Leave no one alive." The dark heavenly ants guarding the periphery launched an orderly attack under the command of the Ant King. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.